Chapter 792. The power of this strike is not bad. However, if that's all you have, you will definitely lose. Ziyue glanced indifferently at the rod that was rapidly descending. He laughed softly and said, "All right, I want to see just how mysterious the heart sword technique that I have just raised to the perfect stage is." As he spoke, his mind stirred, and his soul transformed into strands of golden threads that fused with the Dark North flying sword in his body, becoming entangled with the Dark North flying sword. At the same time, the abundant Jindan essence in his body rapidly turned into a torrent and surged into the flying sword. Chi! The Dark North flying sword shot out in a flash. The strike was too fast. It was as fast as lightning. The crowd of cultivators could not see the trajectory at all. They only saw a flash of light before their eyes, and then it disappeared before their eyes in an instant as if it had never existed. Perhaps only those in the middle or late stages of the primordial spirit realm, or even those at the peak, would be able to catch a trace of it with their divine perception. However, to truly dodge the strike, countless cultivators shook their heads in awe. There were more than 10 primordial spirit realm cultivators present, but less than 5 of them were confident that they could dodge the strike. Puff! The sword light flashed, and everyone saw that the mighty and unstoppable giant shadow of the staff was shattered. Even the body of the shadow, Situ Zheng's natal Dharma treasure, the heaven-startling staff, was broken into two with a puff as the flying sword slashed past. The destruction of the natal Dharma treasure would cause an extremely strong backlash to the cultivator. Almost instantly, the arrogant and domineering Siduzheng spat out a mouthful of black blood. His face was as pale as a sheet, and it was obvious that his mind, chi, and primordial spirit had been severely injured. However, Ziyue's strike was not over yet. After breaking the heaven-startling staff, it did not slow down and continued to fly past. Oh no! Situ Zheng's expression changed drastically. He was extremely shocked and felt a sense of despair. He hurriedly endured the pain of having his natal magic treasure shattered and his primordial spirit damaged. He unleashed his full combat strength and fully displayed the strength of an early-stage primordial spirit realm cultivator. He controlled the Chaos Cauldron and even used the Chaos Chi Mystic Light to shield himself within the Chaos Cauldron. Boom! Just as he used the Primordial Chi Profound Light, the flying sword instantly pierced towards him. Block it! Situ Zheng let out a terrified roar. However, the moment the flying sword pierced the immemorial Chi Profound Light defensive shield, he understood that he could not block it. With a pop, the defensive barrier shattered in an instant. The remaining force of the flying sword did not diminish as it landed on the Chaos Cauldron. With a puff, it shattered the Chaos Cauldron like a hot knife through butter, creating a hole in it. Then, he directly tapped on his body. No, he roared, and his eyes were filled with despair. Was he going to die? He had just broken through to the immortal soul stage and was full of confidence. Was he going to die now? Countless people's faces were filled with shock. They did not expect the situation to take such a drastic turn for the worse. Siduzheng, who had already unleashed his full combat strength and displayed the full power of the immortal soul stage, was no match for Ziyue, who was still in the golden core stage. It should be pointed out that Lin Fan had only used one sword move. With one sword move, he had easily pierced through Situ Zheng's 2 natal magic treasures and cut them into pieces. Moreover, the remaining force of the sword had not dissipated and was about to tap on Situ Zheng's body. Was Lin Fan going to kill him as well? How is this possible? Almost everyone felt a sense of absurdity in their hearts. The gap between them was too big. It was so big that they could not imagine it. Stop! Old Monster Yunwu, Old Monster Dingchen, and the first elder of the Myriad sect, Zhuge Dan, immediately shouted angrily and rushed out. Even the sect leader of the Myriad sect, Situ Wu's expression changed. He was about to attack. Naturally, they would not watch Situ Zheng die in front of them. Previously, countless top experts had tried to kill him, but it was impossible. Now it was even more impossible. Forget it. Ziyue's eyes moved, and he controlled the flying sword to stop. He did not have the intention to kill Situ Zheng. Even though Situ Zheng hated him, Ziyue knew that there was no fundamental conflict between him and Situ Zheng. Moreover, Situ Zheng's public heavenly tribulation had allowed Lin Fan to see the power of the heavenly tribulation. He knew every trace of change in the heavenly tribulation when the heavenly tribulation struck. This gave him more confidence and confidence in his own heavenly tribulation. This, in fact, could be considered a blessing in disguise. Therefore, he did not have the intention to kill Situ Zheng directly. He would just teach him a lesson. Of course, it was also because the experts of the Myriad sect, Old Monster Yunwu, Old Monster Dingchen, and the other experts were eyeing him covetously. With so many primordial soul experts attacking at the same time, even if he had 3 heads and 6 arms, it would be difficult for him to defend himself. Moreover, there was also Situ Wu, the Supreme Realm expert who was said to be invincible. However, clang. Just as Bai Ziyue was controlling his flying sword to hover in the air, a golden sword pierced out with irresistible force and struck his flying sword fiercely. Boom! With a loud bang, Ziyue's flying sword was quickly retracted. A faint crack appeared on the flying sword, and its spirituality was greatly damaged. At this moment, Situ Zheng's martial uncle, Old Monster Dingchen, attacked. What audacity! What ruthless methods! You actually dared to kill us before our very eyes? He shouted angrily and seemed to be extremely angry. The moment he used his flying sword to block Ziyue's attack, he quickly attacked. He waved his hand. Rumble! It was as if the heavens and earth were falling apart. A large black river rapidly gushed out from an unknown space, sweeping toward Bai Ziyue. Situ Zheng is my only disciple. Since you dare to hurt him, you can only atone for your sins with your death. Then, Old Monster Yunwu attacked as well. A ball of thick black fog rushed toward Ziyue as he spoke with a slightly deranged voice. At this moment, 2 experts at the peak of the primordial soul realm attacked at the same time. With one on the left and one on the right, they cooperated and trapped Ziyue in the void like a net. It was too late to dodge. He could only take it head-on. Be careful. Fan Qing Yu's face turned ghastly pale in an instant. Her heart was filled with panic. She did not expect that Old Monster Yunwu and Old Monster Dingchen, who had reached the peak of the primordial soul realm, would attack Ziyue without any regard for their dignity. It should be known that anyone with a discerning eye could clearly see that Bai Ziyue had held back at the last moment. His flying sword did not really pierce Situ Zheng's body. There was an obvious pause at the last moment. Old Monster Yunwu and Old Monster Dingchen, 2 experts at the peak of the primordial soul realm, attacked at the same time. Not to mention that Taoist Northming is only at the peak of the Golden Core realm. Even an expert at the peak of the primordial soul realm would find it difficult to resist. It's a pity that Taoist North Ming's talent and strength can be seen from the sword just now. He is far superior to Situ Zheng. He can be said to be the number 1 in the world, surpassing Jiang Moyu, Taoist White Bone, Situ Zheng, and many others of the same generation. Even since ancient times, there was almost no one in the same realm who could be a match for him. It's a pity that Old Monster Yunwu and Old Monster Dingchen were suspicious of him. They did not care about their dignity and wanted to kill him. Old Monster Yunwu and Old Monster Dingchen have always been unscrupulous in their actions. Now that Taoist Dark North had fought Situ Zheng and won, it could be said that he had broken Situ Zheng's legend of invincibility. He had even suppressed the great momentum of Situ Zheng's breakthrough into the primordial spirit realm. He also destroyed the plan that the Myriad Phenomenon sect and the Hidden Immortal sect had been preparing for many years. He also ruined Situ Zheng's chances of competing for the position of the youth leader. Naturally, Old Monster Yunwu and Old Monster Dingchen were enraged and wanted to kill him. Therefore, even if Taoist North Ming held back at the last moment, they would still accuse Taoist North Ming of being on the opposite side and kill him. Moreover, if Taoist North Ming dies, even if Situ Zheng's legend of invincibility is broken, there is still a chance to redeem it. After all, his strength is indeed unparalleled. There is almost no one in the same generation who can be a match for him. As long as the stronger Taoist North Ming dies, then the position of the youth leader will naturally fall to him. This is the world of immortal spells. It is full of danger and every step is dangerous. What you see may not be true. Who knows what the other party is planning? If you affect the other party's plan, no matter how innocent you are, you will have to die. There were countless experts at the scene, and all of them were very observant. There were even experts who knew about the many schemes of the Myriad Phenomenon sect, the Hidden Immortal sect, and even the Heavenly Spirit sect. After some analysis, they almost immediately explained Old Monster Yunwu and Old Monster Dingchen's intentions. Shameless. Ziyue's expression changed slightly. Almost immediately, he summoned the Kunwu Golden Pagoda. As his body trembled, layers of extremely fine, scale-like patterns suddenly appeared on his body. These patterns, along with the emergence of Jindan energy, immediately formed the shadow of a dragon and enveloped him. It was the supreme defensive Dao technique that he had used, the true dragon black armor technique. With the double layer of defense of the Kunwu Golden Pagoda and the true dragon black armor technique, Ziyue secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Boom, boom, boom. Immediately after, the surging black river and endless clouds immediately blasted the Kunwu Golden Pagoda. However, they were unable to shake it at all. The remaining power, after layers of weakening, landed on Ziyue's body. However, it was unable to even shake the spiritual light of the defensive armor on his body. How is this possible? What kind of Dharma treasure is this? Even my black river of polluted water could not shake it at all? You have to know that even a superior grade primordial soul stage treasure would be greatly damaged, and its power would be greatly reduced if it touches my black river of polluted water. Also, my bone-corroding cloud mist can corrode everything. When combined with your black river of polluted water, even a superior grade primordial soul stage treasure would not be able to withstand it for long. In the end, look at that treasure. It did not even cause the slightest ripple. Old Monster Dingchen and Old Monster Cloudy Mist's expressions changed drastically. They were somewhat in disbelief. Immediately after, they seemed to have thought of something. Instantly, an extremely hot glow appeared in their eyes. Numinous treasure. This is a numinous treasure. This was because only a numinous treasure could completely block their black river of polluted water and bone-corroding cloud mist without being damaged in the slightest. This numinous treasure is completely golden. It is shaped like a pagoda with layers upon layers. Could it be the legendary one in the Dragon Palace? The 9-dragon golden pagoda? Seeing this from afar, Situ Wu's expression changed. He revealed a look of shock. One had to know that there were extremely few numinous treasures recorded in the entire astral boundary. The appearance of each numinous treasure could almost cause an uproar. Countless cultivators would flock to it, causing a huge war to break out. It could be said to be incomparably precious. It could cause the top primordial soul realm powerhouses and even supreme realm powerhouses to be tempted. Even he did not expect that Ziyue would actually have one on him. If not for the fact that there were so many fellow cultivators present and that it would be embarrassing, he would not have been able to hold himself back and rush forward to fight for it. Kill. Die. Old Monster Dingchen and Old Monster Cloudy Mist had been in the same sect for thousands of years. Their minds were connected. The moment they realized that Ziyue had taken out a numinous treasure, they understood each other's intentions. A numinous treasure. How rare and precious was it? Both of them were at the peak of the primordial soul realm. Yet, they did not have one. Even the sect leader of the Thousand Phenomenon sect, Situ Wu, who was at the supreme realm, was only allowed to use his numinous treasure when the sect was facing a great calamity. Normally, it was impossible for him to take it out of the sect. In the end, Ziyue, who they thought to be weak, actually had one. How could they not be envious and greedy? Snatch it. They had to snatch it. No matter if it was for the sake of the spirit-hidden sect or for the sake of their own spiritual treasures, they were determined to obtain this spiritual treasure. In an instant, both of them unleashed their full strength. While maintaining the black river of polluted water and the bone-corroding mist to continuously rush towards the Kunwu Golden Pagoda, they also unleashed their other technique. Boom, boom, boom. They quickly landed on the Kunwu Golden Pagoda. They were confident that although the numinous treasure was powerful, it also depended on the strength of the user. Even if a Golden Core Realm cultivator used the numinous treasure, it would be difficult for him to unleash even 1/10,000th of its power. Not to mention, the strength of the opponent's Jindan essence and defensive techniques were far inferior to that of an primordial soul realm powerhouse. They believed that as long as they attacked with their full strength, even if Taoist North Ming hid inside and did not come out, he would still be killed by them. Indeed, their strength has reached the peak of the primordial soul realm. Especially Old Monster Cloudy Mist and Old Monster Ding Qin. Both of them are veteran primordial soul realm powerhouses. Their combat strength is tyrannical and their techniques are comprehensive. Not only are their attacks extremely strong, but they are also proficient in primordial soul attack. If not for the fact that I have already cultivated the 9 Thunder God-destroying seal to perfection and covered my entire soul with the Great Soul Golden Silk, which gave me an additional layer of top-notch defensive techniques, it would have been difficult for me to block their attack. Ziyue felt a slight piercing pain in his soul, but his heart relaxed. Immediately after, he attacked without hesitation. With a thought, the flying sword that was flying backwards turned into a ray of flowing light and rushed out rapidly. Heart Sword True Honorable's Inheritance, Heart Sword Art. At the same time, Ziyue felt as if he had a stroke of luck. He stretched out his hand and tapped on the flying sword. Buzz! A special force quickly landed on the flying sword. Time acceleration. Chapter 793. Consumes 10 million points of soul power to accelerate time by 1 second. Accelerate. Previously, when his attribute panel had been upgraded, he had wanted to test out the effects of the time acceleration power. Now that he was in the midst of an intense battle, he naturally wanted to experiment. Therefore, without hesitation, he first attached the power of time acceleration to the Dark North flying sword that was using the Heart Sword technique. Buzz! In an instant, Ziyue felt that his mind, which was attached to the Dark North flying sword, had become incomparably active, and everything outside the flying sword had slowed down. The speed of the attacks of Old Monster Cloudy Mist and Old Monster Ding Qin, which were originally astonishingly fast, was reduced to 1/10 of their original speed. No, that's not right. It's not that their attacks have slowed down. It's that my attack speed has become faster. My speed has increased by 10 times. Ziyue instantly came to a conclusion, and he was extremely excited. This was also a huge increase in his strength. What was the concept of 10 times the speed? Originally, when he used the Heart Sword technique, his speed was already extremely fast, and ordinary cultivators would find it difficult to defend against it. Now that his speed had suddenly increased by 10 times, it was naturally even more shocking, reaching an unimaginable level. What's going on? Old Monster Cloudy Mist and Old Monster Ding Qin only felt that Ziyue's flying sword had disappeared from their senses in a flash. Its speed was so fast that it left them dumbfounded. Then, they subconsciously thought of putting up a defense, but it was too late. The flying sword pierced through the air and directly touched Old Monster Ding Chen's head. Old Monster Ding Chen's horrified gaze was directly pierced through his head. The terrifying power of the heart sword technique directly turned his physical body into dust, and his primordial spirit was completely annihilated. The supreme Taoist technique, the heart sword art. Old Monster Ding Chen was actually very strong, and had the battle strength of a second-tier primordial spirit realm cultivator. Moreover, he was all-round. Whether it was attack, defense, or speed, they were all very balanced, and there were almost no obvious weaknesses. Therefore, he was quite famous in the immortal technique world, and was respected by many. However, Ziyue's sword was equally powerful. When he unleashed his full battle prowess and used his great Tao manifestation and other auxiliary techniques, the might of his primordial magnetic divine light, 9 extinction divine sword and other Tao techniques would reach the pinnacle of the primordial spirit realm. He would be able to break through the barriers of space and see the turbulence of the void. As for the heart sword technique, it was a supreme Tao technique. Its power was naturally much stronger than the 9 extinction divine sword and the metamagnet divine light. He might not have reached the second tier of the pinnacle of the primordial spirit realm, but he was not far off. Of course, under normal circumstances, it would indeed be difficult for his attack to do anything to Ancestor Ding Chen. After all, the might of his attack was not enough to break through Ancestor Ding Chen's defenses, let alone kill him. However, Ziyue had used the special power that came with the upgrade of his attributes panel, time acceleration. Under the acceleration of time, the speed of the sword was simply too fast. It was truly as fast as lightning, so fast that no pinnacle primordial spirit realm expert could react in time. They could only take it head-on, as it was impossible for them to dodge it. And because of his confidence, Ancestor Ding Chen did not use any defensive techniques at all. With his own physical strength, there was no way he could withstand Ziyue's attack that was comparable to the pinnacle of the primordial spirit realm. Not to mention, under the enhancement of extreme speed, the power of the sword was actually far stronger than expected. Therefore, under the sword, Ancestor Ding Chen was directly reduced to dust and died on the spot. This is time acceleration? I see. This is only used on the flying sword. If it were used on my body or an enemy, what kind of changes would there be? Ziyue saw the effect of the sword and felt a little agitated, which then triggered more fanciful thoughts. As soon as he used time acceleration, he realized that this ability was different from time reversal. The time reversal from before could only be used on himself. It affected everything related to him. It did not affect anything beyond the range of his surroundings. Later on, the astral realm itself would also make corrections and would not affect the original operation of the world. However, this time acceleration could be controlled by him, and it could be used on any object at will. For example, when he used it on his flying sword, the flow of time on the flying sword itself was increased by 10 times. Its speed was superb, and it could produce an effect that shocked even himself. What if it was used on himself? Would there be such a change? And what if it was used on others, or even an opponent? Could it also cause the opponent's strength to increase explosively and explode with terrifying battle strength? How is this possible? Old Monster Cloudy Mist's eyes were filled with shock. Old Monster Ding Chen is dead? He just returned from the immortal battlefield. This is his first appearance, and he did not even have the chance to make a big scene. How is he dead? In the distance, many primordial spirit realm experts of the Nature sect and Heavenly Spirit sect could not believe it. They had amazing eyesight and of course could see the difference in strength between the two sides. They had long believed that Ziyue would definitely die. In the end, before they could react, Old Monster Ding Chen had already died. As for Ziyue, because he had a spiritual treasure with him, he was not injured at all. They had already guessed that Ziyue would not be easy to deal with since he dared to stand out and was able to severely injure Situjing with one sword. He should be extremely powerful. However, such battle strength was still beyond their expectations. If I'm not wrong, this flying sword technique should be the heart sword technique passed down by the heart sword True Honorable, an ancient spirit severing stage expert. This heart sword technique is a supreme Dao technique, and its power is naturally unparalleled. And from the power that Taoist North Ming had unleashed when he used this sword technique, it is obvious that he has already cultivated this supreme Dao technique to an extremely high level. However, even if it is a perfected heart sword technique, it is impossible to explode with such a terrifying speed. Even I would find it difficult to catch up to such a speed. It is definitely at the supreme level. Moreover, I don't know if it is an illusion, but there seems to be a trace of the mystery of time in that sword technique. The Thousand Phenomenon sect leader, the supreme level expert Situ Wu's expression turned serious and solemn. In the entire celestial spell world, there were very few people who could be treated as equals by him. Other than the supreme level experts, there were only a few who were at the peak of the primordial soul realm, who were extremely powerful and famous. Ziyue's sword technique was enough for him to take seriously. Although it was not enough to threaten him, it was enough to shock him. Not to mention the speed that was comparable to the supreme level, the mystery of time in that sword technique moved him even more. He knew very well that the Tao of time was one of the two supreme great Tao. Even spirit-severing stage experts could rarely see a trace of its mystery. In the end, he had seen it from Ziyue. More importantly, Ziyue's celestial spell realm was only at the golden core stage. The peak of the golden core stage. How weak was it to an expert like him, who had already reached the peak of the astral realm? He could easily crush him to death. But it was the other party who had mastered the mystery of the Tao of time? That was a little shocking. The effect of time acceleration is too great for my strength. However, the consumption is also very terrifying. In just 1 second, I used up 10 million points of spiritual power. Fortunately, the result of this sword technique was obvious. After killing Ding Chen, my spiritual power increased instead of decreasing and reached 90 million points. Ziyue sighed in his heart. There was no other way. If not for the power of time acceleration, even if he was not afraid of Ding Chen and Cloud Mist Old Monster, he could not do anything to them. If time dragged on, it would be very disadvantageous for him. He naturally had to end the battle quickly. Next, it's you. By Ziyue's body moved. His eyes were cold as he looked at the Cloud Mist ancestor. Without hesitation, he controlled the flying sword to flash again. The power of time acceleration naturally landed on the flying sword easily. Since old eccentric Ding Chen and old eccentric Cloud Mist intended to kill him, then he naturally wouldn't hold back. This time, he also had to establish his dominance, because only then would he be able to smoothly and safely take Fan Qingyu away. Oh no! Cloud Mist Old Monster's expression changed drastically. Spiritual light flashed on his body, and immediately petals appeared. As they combined, they formed a huge black lotus flower that enveloped him completely. At the same time as his body flew back, he used threads of cloud mist. These threads of cloud mist were densely packed and covered an area of thousands of feet around him. Almost every thread of cloud mist was connected to his mind to a certain extent. With this, he finally touched the flying trajectory of Ziyue's flying sword. This sword is too fast. I can't dodge it. I have to use another method. The moment he touched the flying trajectory and speed of Ziyue's flying sword, Cloud Mist Old Monster knew that with his speed, it was impossible for him to dodge this sword. He could only take it head-on. The result of taking it head-on was what happened to his junior brother. Even if it was because his junior brother did not have time to use his defensive technique, and he was stronger than his junior brother, his defensive technique was better. But he did not dare to take the risk. Therefore, his primordial spirit suddenly trembled violently. Immediately, a pitch-black awl pierced out of his primordial spirit. Primordial spirit attack, black divine awl. In his opinion, although Bai Ziue's various techniques were strong, his cultivation was only at the peak of the golden core stage after all. Perhaps Bai Ziue's combat strength was equal to his, but the weakness of the insufficient strength of his soul was absolutely not something that could be made up for by relying on external forces. If the black divine awl was effective, even if it could not directly destroy his soul, it would be enough to cause him to be unable to use the power of this sword and be destroyed. Soul attacks had no essence and were indeed the fastest. It even surpassed the speed of Ziyue's flying sword. Ziyue did not expect Cloud Mist Old Monster to use a primordial spirit attack, but facing Cloud Mist Old Monster, who was obviously stronger than Ding Chun, he naturally would not underestimate him. Therefore, when he used the Heart Sword technique, he also used his own primordial spirit attack. Supreme Dao Technique, 9 Thunder God Destroying Seal. He was looking forward to the power of the 9 Thunder God Destroying Seal. When he used it, the 9 Thunder God Destroying Seals combined to form a Thunder God Destroying Seal that quickly rushed towards Cloud Mist Old Monster. Chi. The Thunder God Destroying Seal coincidentally collided with Cloud Mist Old Monster's Black Divine Awl. Under the intense collision, the Black Divine Awl suddenly shattered and the Thunder God Destroying Seal became much dimmer. It actually rushed into Cloud Mist Old Monster's primordial spirit before the flying sword. Humph! Cloud Mist Old Monster groaned and saw stars. The power of his primordial spirit was slightly scattered. Fortunately, although Ziyue's attack was strong, it had been weakened by the Black Divine Awl. The remaining power was naturally unable to shake Cloud Mist Old Monster's primordial spirit that had reached the peak of the primordial spirit realm and had been refined countless times. Then, Ziyue's flying sword fiercely hit the Black Lotus on Cloud Mist Old Monster's body. Under the terrifying explosion of power, a large part of the void between heaven and earth turned into nothingness, revealing a large area of incomparably huge spatial turbulence. I blocked it. Cloud Mist Old Monster was overjoyed and he heaved a sigh of relief. Thinking about it, it was normal. His Black Lotus was a supreme-grade primordial spirit treasure. When combined with his defensive Dao techniques, even an extreme realm expert would have to put in a lot of effort to break through. Although Taoist Northming's sword was strong, what was truly terrifying was its terrifying speed under the acceleration of time. The true power of the attack was not that strong. At least, it did not reach his limit. Thinking of this, Cloud Mist Old Monster's eyes shone brightly. Just as he was about to take advantage of the situation to counterattack, he suddenly saw a huge shadow of a golden pagoda. It was majestic like a huge mountain and came crashing down on him. It was Ziyue who had suddenly taken out his killing weapon, the Kunwu Golden Pagoda. With the help of the power of the Kunwu Golden Pagoda, he was able to unleash such a swift and terrifying attack. Stop! Situ Wu's expression changed. He finally could not help but make a move. A flying sword quickly pierced out. However, the shadow of the Golden Pagoda seemed to have expected it. At the critical moment, it twisted and dodged the flying sword. From another direction, it blasted Cloud Mist Old Monster's body. The existence of the extreme realm expert Situ Wu was like a huge sword hanging in the air, oppressing Ziyue. Ziyue was naturally prepared for his attack. Therefore, the moment Situ Wu attacked, he hurriedly used the power of time reversal on his attribute panel. This was how he was able to dodge Situ Wu's attack at the critical moment. No! Cloud Mist Old Monster screamed in horror. However, no matter how hard he tried, he could not block the attack of Ziyue's spiritual treasure. This attack had truly reached the level of the extreme realm. Even when the otherworldly demon encountered this attack, it was extremely serious and could only avoid it, not to mention Old Monster Cloudy Mist. The moment he was struck by this attack, old monster cloudy mist, bang! The supreme grade primordial spirit treasure, the Black Lotus, was instantly shattered and almost completely destroyed. The terrifying power did not diminish as it crashed into cloud mist old monster's body. Puff! As if a sandstorm had blown past, his robes, flesh, blood, bones, and primordial spirit were all destroyed and turned into ashes. The second primordial spirit realm expert, Cloud Mist Old Monster, had also fallen. Huff huff, the spiritual energy that Cloud Mist Old Monster gave me is slightly more than Ding Chin. Even if I use the time acceleration to reduce the spiritual energy by 10 million, my spiritual energy has increased to 170 million points. Finally, it gives me more confidence. Quickly using his spiritual energy to recover the Jindan essence that he had used in the fierce battle, Ziyue's expression became calm. Chapter 794. Consecutive Kills. Moreover, the two people he killed in succession were both at the peak of the primordial soul realm. Everyone was stunned. They did not expect Taoist North Ming to have such terrifying battle prowess. Was he really only at the peak of the Golden Core realm? Countless people were horrified, in awe and admiration. This battle was truly beyond my expectations. Old Monster Ding Chin and Old Monster Cloud Mist were powerful existences who had dominated the immortal spell world for thousands of years. Especially Old Monster Cloud Mist, who was a top expert at the peak of the primordial soul realm. He had a certain chance of advancing to the supreme realm. In the end, he died at the hands of Taoist North Ming. Also, did you notice that during this period, sect leader Situ Wu of the Myriad Phenomenon sect tried to stop Taoist North Ming, but Taoist North Ming dodged. His control of power was really amazing. If he was 1,000th of a second faster or 1,000th of a second slower, he would definitely have been detected and stopped. As a result, it was precisely that nimble dodge that caused the attack to land on old freak Cloudmist's body. Heh, but you can't blame them for this. Cloud Mist and Ding Chun had impure motives for attacking Taoist Dark North this time. They wanted to kill him, and they wanted to use this opportunity to redeem themselves from Situ Zheng's defeat. Unfortunately, they picked on the wrong person. They did not expect Taoist North Ming to be so powerful. Coupled with the fact that he had a numinous treasure with him, he was already in an invincible position. Otherwise, how could he have ended up like this? However, they only have themselves to blame for all of this. If they did not have the intention to kill, I think Taoist North Ming would not have dared to kill him in front of so many people and with so many experts of the Myriad Phenomenon sect surrounding him. Also, I have to say that these two people did not have a good reputation in the immortal spell world. It might not be a bad thing for them to die. That's true. Who would have thought that Taoist North Ming, who was only at the peak of the Golden Core realm, would be so powerful? Even now, when I think of the elegance of that sword, I still feel my soul tremble. That speed is probably unmatched even among the Supreme Realm experts. The golden pagoda on his body was most likely the Nine Dragons Pagoda, one of the sect treasures of the ancient Dragon Palace. It just so happened that some time ago, there was news of the Dragon Palace appearing in the Endless Sea, and this Taoist Dark North was rumored to be there. And from the power that this numinous treasure had erupted, it was not difficult to see that he had already completely controlled this numinous treasure. Come to think of it, this spirit treasure has most likely already recognized its master. To be able to make a numinous treasure automatically recognize him as its master, one can imagine how outstanding his talent is. Coupled with his extremely tyrannical strength, it's really enough for him to move unhindered in the immortal spell world. I reckon that only Lemeters can do anything to him. After this battle, I think his name will be known throughout the firmament territory and the star boundary. The cultivators discussed fervently. Their voices were filled with astonishment. This was especially so for Lu Wenshu, Lu Heng, Ching Sun, and the others. When they thought of their arrogant attitude towards Ziyue at the Black Wind Market and in front of the Heavenly Spirit Palace, they were all horrified. They were afraid that when Ziyue came back to his senses, he would settle the score with them. Such strength, such means, and most importantly, he's only at the Golden Core realm. Once he steps into the Primordial Soul realm in the future, how strong will his combat strength be? Luohua Fairy was also shocked and revealed a look of disbelief. Fan Qingyu's face was full of pride and she was extremely excited. Even though she did not know why Ziyue's strength was so tyrannical, when he displayed his terrifying combat strength and killed the two-peak Primordial Soul realm experts as easily as crushing dry weeds and smashing rotten wood, her heart, which had been hanging in the air, finally calmed down completely. Then, her eyes revealed her deep and undisguised affection. How can his strength be so strong? And the speed of his improvement is too fast, isn't it? Taoist Qin Quan and spiritual master De Wang of the Heavenly Spirit sect were full of shock. When they thought of the information about Lin Fan's strength that their disciples had sent to them after he had killed the Ju Sword King, the difference was too great. If Lin Fan had only concealed his strength then, it would be fine. But if he had really raised his combat strength to such a level in just a few months' time, it was hard for them to imagine just how frightening the other party's strength and talent were. "Master, senior uncle," Sidu Jing cried out in shock, but when he looked at Bai Ziyue, his eyes revealed a clear sense of timidity. He was afraid. Previously, Ziyue's sword had already left an indelible mark in his heart. Now that he saw his master and senior uncle being killed one after another, the shock and fear immediately caused him to be frightened, and it even caused him to have an inner demon. "How dare you!" The leader of the Thousand Phenomena sect, the supreme class expert Sidu Wu, was finally enraged. His dignified gaze fell on Ziyue, and he shouted angrily, "I told you to stop, didn't you hear me? Those who kill will be killed by others. They want to kill me, so I naturally won't sit still and do nothing. If sect leader Sidu wants to take this opportunity to attack me, I won't sit still and do nothing. I'll take it. I'd like to see how powerful a supreme class expert is." Ziyue's gaze was indifferent, but his tone was very tough. He naturally knew that with his current strength, even if he used all his means, he would not be a match for a supreme class expert. The supreme class expert was the peak of the primordial soul realm. One more step and he would step into the separating divinity stage, and he would be a true top expert. Now, with the help of the Kunwu Golden Pagoda, he was barely able to reach the supreme class in terms of defense and attack. But a battle between real experts involved not only defense and attack, but also speed and soul attacks, especially when Situ Wu attacked the Mountain Master of Mount Qingxian. The terrifying power of the attack was perfectly compatible with the attack of the primordial soul realm, and it required both physical and soul defense to be at an extreme level to be able to block it. In terms of physical defense, with the help of the Kunwu Golden Pagoda and the Supreme True Dragon Armor technique, he might be able to block it. But in terms of soul defense, his strength was still too low. Even if he raised the 9 Thunder God-destroying seal to perfection, he would not be able to block an attack from a supreme class expert. But it was not as if he did not have a trump card. This trump card was not just the time reversal and time acceleration abilities on the stats panel. Although these two abilities were heaven-defying, there was a limit to how much they could increase his battle strength. Perhaps they would be of great use to other experts of the same level, but against those who were one level higher than him, they would not be of much use. His real trump card was actually the heavenly tribulations. When I go through the heavenly tribulations at the peak of the golden elixir realm, any cultivator within a certain range of me will be considered to be going through the heavenly tribulations with me. At that time, even if Situ Wu's battle strength is shocking, he would not be able to withstand the heavenly tribulations that are comparable to the supreme class. he would be severely injured, and there might even be a risk of death. A hint of viciousness flashed across Ziyue's face. If he really encountered a life-and-death crisis, he would not let the other party have an easy time even if he was not prepared enough to go through the heavenly tribulations in advance. Arrogant! Arrogant! Who do you think you are? How dare you provoke our sect leader? As soon as he said that, many experts of the Thousand Elephants sect scolded him. Situ Wu was the sect leader of the Thousand Elephants sect, one of the 10 supreme class experts in the immortal spell world, and the most respected expert of the Thousand Elephants sect. Naturally, he would not allow others to humiliate him. Although the old monster Ding Chun and the old monster Cloud Mist are unreasonable, they were also impulsive in their actions this time. However, they had previously contributed to the Thousand Elephants sect and protected my son, Situ Zheng. Now that they are dying in your hands, wouldn't it make me look incompetent if I do nothing? With that, Situ Wu paused for a moment before continuing, how about this? I won't bully you. Take a blow from me. If you can withstand it, I'll let you go. What do you think? Take a blow from you? Ziyue was stunned for a moment before he sneered. There's no need for that. If you want to fight, just do it. Why do you have to be so pretentious? Everyone knows that you're an supreme class expert, sect leader Situ. Even a peak essence spirit realm cultivator can't withstand a single blow from you. To you, what's the difference between a single blow and an all-out attack? If I can withstand it, I won't be afraid of you. If I can't, I'll probably be doomed in the end, right? Naturally, he was clear about Situ Wu's plan. If he could kill Situ Wu with a single blow, the Thousand Elephants sect would naturally be able to display the supreme authority of the sect. The reputation that they had previously lost would be restored. Even if outsiders were to talk about it, they would only say that although Ziyue was a genius, he was unlucky. Moreover, he had been too arrogant and had been killed by Situ Wu. If he could withstand the blow, his reputation would be enhanced and he would be praised by countless cultivators. He would have the ability to fight against a supreme class expert and would be one of the top cultivators of his generation. However, the Thousand Elephants sect could also deny that it was because the sect leader of the Thousand Elephants sect did not use his full strength. At the very least, they would be able to preserve some of their reputation. It could be said that the sect leader of the Thousand Elephants sect was able to attack or retreat. That's not up to you. Situ Wu's eyes turned cold. He scoffed and immediately attacked. His figure flashed and his speed was unbelievably fast. In an instant, he was before Ziyue and struck with his palm. Boom, boom, boom. Immediately, a strange ray of light shot out like a long river and charged towards Ziyue. Oh no! Ziyue's heart skipped a beat and his expression changed. Consume 1,000,000 spiritual energy to use the power of time reversal for 1 second. Use. Immediately after, his vision blurred and he had returned to a second ago. That's not up to you. At this moment, Situ Wu's voice was heard and he was about to attack. Bai Ziyue was not surprised and turned a deaf ear to it. He quickly shifted his gaze back to his attributes panel. Consume 10,000,000 spiritual energy to use the power of time acceleration for 1 second. Use. However, at this moment, Ziyue did not use the power of time acceleration on his natal flying sword. Instead, he used it on Ziyue's body. This time, the power of time acceleration was much more flexible than the power of time reversal. Not only could it be used on magic treasures, but it could also be used on himself, enemies, or anything else. Previously, he had used the power of time acceleration on his natal flying sword. It immediately accelerated the flow of time around the natal flying sword and increased the speed of the natal flying sword to an extreme. At this moment, when he used the power of time acceleration on himself, he instantly felt the difference. It's so slow. Everything around me has become so slow. Yes, when the power of time acceleration is used on me, it means that the flow of time around me has suddenly sped up by several times. On the other hand, other than me, the flow of time in other places has not changed. In comparison, everything around me seems to be much slower. Ziyue's consciousness wavered, and he did not dare to be careless. This was because the attack of the Lammeter powerhouse, Situ Wu, was about to arrive. When one's strength reached the Lammeter realm, one's every move was in harmony with heaven and earth and had unfathomable mysteries. Under the power of time acceleration, Ziyue originally wanted to use this special state to directly escape the attack range of the other party. However, the invisible lock made him understand. He could not escape. He could only take it head-on. Therefore, while Ziyue maintained the true dragon mystic armor technique and took out the Kunwu Golden Pagoda, his soul circulated crazily and unleashed the 9 lightning god-destroying seal. 1 seal, 2 seals, 3 seals in a short period of time, he had unleashed a total of 9 lightning god-destroying seals. At this time, he still felt that it was not safe. He even used his innate divine ability, Daze, and shot out 3 beams of Daze light. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The 9 lightning seals combined with the 3 soul disorientation lights and quickly formed a soul shield that completely enveloped his soul. Whether I live or die depends on this. Ziyue's expression was grim. At the same time, he instinctively consumed a large amount of soul energy to replenish his soul and maintain it in a perfect state. At this moment, Ziyue could be said to have used all his means. However, he had no choice. He was extremely wary of Situ Wu's material attacks and primordial spirit attack. In terms of defense, he had the Kunwu Golden Pagoda and the True Dragon Mystic Armor technique. In addition, his physical strength was not weak either. Therefore, he had a certain level of confidence. However, he was still far from being able to defend against primordial spirit attacks. Especially when facing the primordial spirit attacks of a Lammeter, he had no confidence at all. Therefore, he could not be too careful. Unfortunately, there was not enough time. The time acceleration was also running out quickly. Otherwise, he would have to make more preparations. Boom! When Ziyue used all his means and the 1-second time acceleration ended, the Lammeter Situ Wu's attack officially landed on the Kunwu Golden Pagoda. Boom! The terrifying attack landed on the Kunwu Golden Pagoda and let out a deafening sound. The attack was too powerful and penetrating. Ziyue felt that it was even stronger than the extraterrestrial demon. Even though the Kunwu Golden Pagoda was a numinous treasure and had an extremely strong defense, it was still shaken by the attack. 20% of the attack passed through the numinous treasure's defense and landed on Ziyue's body. Chapter 795. Even if it was only 20% of the power of an extreme state expert's attack, it was still extremely terrifying. It quickly landed on Ziyue's True Dragon Profound Armor technique. Boom! The spiritual light on the True Dragon Profound Armor technique quickly dimmed. It was only after being reduced by 50% that it was able to block the attack. Ziyue was not surprised by this. Previously, he had the experience of blocking the attack of the extraterrestrial demon. Even though the extraterrestrial demon was severely injured and did not have enough control over its power, the Kunwu Golden Pagoda had blocked 90% of the extreme state attack. It was not even 20% of Situ Wu's attack. But now, he was completely different from before. The defensive power of the True Dragon's black armor technique was countless times stronger than the 5 Divine Emperor's royal robe. In comparison, he naturally understood that it would not be difficult for him to block this attack with his True Dragon's black armor technique. What was truly rare was that this attack also contained a primordial spirit attack. Regardless of whether it was the Kunwu Golden Pagoda or the True Dragon Profound Armor technique, they might be able to block the physical attack of this attack. However, the primordial spirit attack was not reduced in the slightest. Almost immediately, it penetrated the true dragon profound armor technique's defense and directly invaded Ziyue's body. It charged towards his soul and immediately crashed into the soul shield that was formed by the combination of the 9 Thunder God-destroying seals and the 3 soul-dazing rays. Ziyue's soul defense shield had already reached an extremely powerful level after being strengthened by layers of layers. However, Situ Wu's primordial spirit attack was like a sharp awl. It was sharp and powerful, but it was an extreme state attack. The outcome of the collision was immediately decided. Poof! The many soul defense shields that Ziyue had prepared to use were pierced by Situ Wu's primordial spirit attack. Then, the primordial spirit attack, which had dimmed significantly due to the defensive shield, quickly surged into Ziyue's soul. Humph! Ziyue let out a muffled groan. His face instantly turned as pale as a sheet of paper. The immense pain almost caused his thoughts to stop. His eyes were blurry and his yuan power was in disorder. Blood seemed to be flowing out of his 7 orifices. Pain. 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 It was too painful. Situ Wu's attack not only had an extremely strong destructive power, it was also able to obliterate his soul source, causing him to suffer unimaginable pain. However, Ziyue's 9 lightning god-destroying seals and 3 mind loss lights were not completely useless. In addition, his soul contained a huge amount of great soul golden silk, which was extremely effective in stabilizing and defending his soul. Thus, although his opponent's attack caused him incomparable pain, it did not harm his source energy. Ziyue's willpower was also very strong. Even if the pain was unbearable, he could still maintain his consciousness. Quick, kill him while he's down. As long as he is dead, the spiritual treasure will be ours. Right at this moment, a sinister voice suddenly sounded out. That's right, numinous treasure. Hearing this, the surrounding cultivators immediately came to a realization. Ziyue had a numinous treasure on him. If he was at his peak, almost no one would dare to act rashly when Ziyue had the battle record of killing 2 powerhouses at the peak of the primordial soul realm consecutively. However, at this moment, everyone could tell that Situ Wu's attack had already severely injured Ziyue. Thinking about it, how terrifying was the attack of an ultimate realm powerhouse. Even a powerhouse at the peak of the primordial soul realm would definitely die if he was hit. There was no other outcome. Ziyue did not die directly and was only severely injured. That was the credit of the numinous treasure. However, if he was severely injured, how much combat strength did he have left? Furthermore, he had attacked repeatedly previously and his Jindan essence was probably exhausted. If he did not attack now, when would he attack? As for the ultimate realm powerhouse Situ Wu, he definitely had to be mindful of his reputation. Situ Wu had already said that he would not attack again after the first attack. If he did not want to be despised by the world, he would not attack now. And this was their chance. The chance to kill Ziyue and obtain the numinous treasure. It was the numinous treasure. Just thinking about it made all the cultivators' hearts burn with passion. In an instant, countless cultivators heard the news and moved. Among them were many cultivators from Qingxian Mountain, 9-Star Dao Palace, 100,000 Mountains, and the demonic Dao who had secretly attacked previously. They did not completely escape. After confirming that it was safe, they waited for an opportunity to return. This time, it was actually these cultivators who were secretly stirring up trouble and leading the crowd of cultivators to charge towards Ziyue. The leaders were Qingxian Mountain's Taoist Hidden Death and 9-Star Dao Palace's Zhao Guangming. Naturally, Taoist Wugu and Matriarch Poison, which were also among them. Kill him, the numinous treasure is right in front of us. The crowd of cultivators shouted in unison and their murderous aura filled the Black Wind Canyon. At least 7 or 8 primordial soul realm cultivators and dozens of golden elixir realm cultivators charged together. Led by them, several primordial soul realm cultivators and close to 100 golden elixir realm cultivators charged together. At this moment, in the eyes of these people, Ziyue was like a peerless demon that everyone wanted to kill. Of course, there were also those who were sober and did not participate. Instead, they quickly retreated. No, when Fan Qingyu saw this, her face turned pale, and she quickly rushed forward to help. Do you have a death wish? Luohua Fairy hurriedly pulled her back. At the same time, a complicated look of pity appeared in her eyes. She did not expect things to turn out this way. Even she was in awe of Ziyue's talent and strength, but in the end, he was going to die here. Master, please save him. Fan Qingyu's face was covered in tears as she said in a panic. I want to save him, but at this time, even the Supreme Realm cultivators can't do anything, let alone me. Luohua Fairy looked at the countless cultivators charging towards Ziyue and sighed regretfully. When the others heard this, they were also silent, but they did not hesitate to leave the battlefield. This battle was obviously unavoidable. If they did not want to be affected or encounter danger, leaving the battlefield was the best choice. Want to kill me? You are not enough. When Ziyue saw this, he laughed coldly and shouted, Everyone, I will give you a great opportunity. As he spoke, he did not hesitate to control his soul to rush out of the amethyst golden elixir in his body. Facing the sect leader of the Wanxiang sect, the Supreme Realm cultivator Situ Wu, he naturally had a trump card. This was also the reason why he dared to be so aggressive before. His trump card was the out-of-body soul to trigger the heavenly tribulation. When the heavenly tribulation descended, any cultivator within a certain range of him would be considered as going through the heavenly tribulation together with him and would be baptized by it. Moreover, the heavenly tribulation was not based on Ziyue's body, but on everyone's strength. The stronger one was, the stronger the heavenly tribulation would be. Therefore, even if he knew that his strength was far inferior to the Supreme Realm cultivator Situ Wu, he was not afraid at all, because the heavenly tribulation that was triggered by his tribulation would definitely cause him serious injuries. Of course, unless it was necessary, he did not want to trigger the heavenly tribulation in advance. This was because it was a double-edged sword. When the heavenly tribulation descended, it was also very risky for him. Especially when he was unprepared, he was not confident at all. However, Situ Wu's attack was too powerful. It was just one attack, and he had to use all his strength to barely block it. If Situ Wu continued to attack, he would definitely die. As for the one attack that Situ Wu mentioned, he did not believe it at all. Therefore, when his soul was in pain, he had already decided to trigger the heavenly tribulation and drag Situ Wu into the heavenly tribulation together. As for the many powerful cultivators that came after him, he was actually quite surprised. However, he did not care. To him, who had already decided to go through the heavenly tribulation, there was no difference at all. Moreover, since these people wanted to kill him and wanted to kill him, he had no qualms about killing them and dragging them through the heavenly tribulation together. Everyone, I will give you a great opportunity. Ziyue laughed loudly as his soul was completely exposed to the air. This unique soul belonged to a cultivator at the peak of the golden elixir realm. It was powerful and vast, and it even emitted a unique yin energy. This energy was innately rejected by the heavens and earth. Therefore, the heavens and earth immediately reacted to it. Buzz, buzz, buzz. In the void, the wind and clouds changed. The dark clouds that had just dispersed immediately surged again. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The entire heavens and earth within a radius of a few hundred kilometers were instantly covered by endless dark clouds. The terrifying power of lightning gathered and raged. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. A loud sound was heard as the air was torn apart. Endless lightning began to brew, forming a huge pool of lightning that spanned over 100 kilometers. Heavenly tribulation? This is the heavenly tribulation? Taoist North Ming is going to undergo the heavenly tribulation? He's undergoing the heavenly tribulation now. Damn, is he crazy? Crazy? He's not crazy. He's extremely smart. If he were to undergo tribulation now, the cultivators who were charging at him would all suffer and be killed by him. It's already not bad if 1 in 10 can escape from the heavenly tribulation. Hiss. Ruthless, too ruthless. There are more than 10 primordial spirit realm cultivators and more than 100 golden elixir realm cultivators in this bat. Moreover, even the supreme realm cultivator Situwu is still within the range of the heavenly tribulation. Ruthless? He's just trying to protect himself. If he did not have the trump card of undergoing the heavenly tribulation, he would not be able to escape death even if he had the strength of the supreme realm. However, it was hard to say now. This was because the heavenly tribulation was already extremely powerful. Since he had dragged so many cultivators into the heavenly tribulation this time, it would definitely cause an unimaginable change. Perhaps the power of the heavenly tribulation would be much stronger than he had originally imagined. Of course, this was already the best outcome for him. At least he now had a chance of survival. If he succeeds in overcoming the heavenly tribulation, based on the combat strength that he had displayed previously, no one in the celestial spell world would be able to do anything to him. Everyone was stunned. There was a lot of discussion. This battle had already affected the hearts of countless people, and the fact that the Supreme Realm Cultivator had made a move made them even more excited and shocked. They were already extremely surprised that Ziyue could block the other party's attack. Many people did not expect that countless cultivators would attack him because of Ziyue's numinous treasure. They were almost certain that he would definitely die. In the end, they did not expect that Ziyue actually had a trump card and was even preparing a counterattack. Moreover, this counterattack was too ruthless and ruthless. It was not only beyond everyone's expectations, but also made countless people feel horrified. It was the heavenly tribulation. Not to mention the golden elixir realm cultivators who had not undergone the heavenly tribulation, even the primordial spirit realm cultivators who had undergone the baptism of the heavenly tribulation panicked and were extremely terrified at this moment. It was precisely because they had experienced the heavenly tribulation that they were even more aware of the terror of the heavenly tribulation. It was a supreme will that the entire world was fighting against him, and it wanted to obliterate him. Moreover, the heavenly tribulation completely ignored one's strength and was only related to the strength of one's primordial spirit. The stronger one's primordial spirit was, the more terrifying the heavenly tribulation would be. They had been able to transcend the heavenly tribulation previously, but it did not mean that they still had the ability to do so now. Countless people cursed angrily and fled into the distance at an even faster speed, hoping to escape the range of the heavenly tribulation. However, it was useless. Heaven and earth had already sensed when Ziyue's soul rushed out. Those people who were around Ziyue were destined to not be able to escape this calamity. It's coming. Ziyue calmed down and turned a deaf ear to the curses of the people around him. He suddenly raised his hand. Boom! A 10,000-foot-long sea of lightning descended from the sky. Endless lightning and purple light completely drowned the world. It was no longer a single bolt of lightning, but a sea of lightning. Nothing existed anymore. The surrounding heaven and earth were completely submerged by the lightning. It was dazzling to the eye. Even standing far away, one could feel the destructive power. It was a power that could crush all things in the world, all matter that existed, into powder. Needless to say, there was no need to mention the person undergoing the tribulation. Amidst the purple light, the air trembled with fear. Even from many miles away, one could feel the suffocating and despairing aura, causing one to tremble. There were no accidents at all. Soon, someone suffered a calamity. He let out a heart-wrenching scream and turned into ashes, forever disappearing without a trace. Kid, you're too ruthless. The Great Tribulation is coming. Any cultivator is a precious resource. You actually dragged so many people in to be killed. You will be a sinner in the immortal spell world. Situ Wu roared. He also had to face the heavenly tribulation. His hands formed a huge elephant-shaped shadow and blocked the first heavenly tribulation. However, not everyone had such strength, especially many Golden Core realm cultivators. Their realm was insufficient and their methods were insufficient. They could not block the devastation of the heavenly tribulation. Even the first heavenly tribulation had reached their limit. Ah, no! Screams rang out one after another. Many people were screaming in panic. This was only the first heavenly tribulation. There were at least 9 more. How many people could survive it? Before making a move, no one would have thought that Ziyue would use such a method. Chapter 796. Even if a Golden Core realm cultivator had the trump card of transcending the tribulation, it could only be triggered after breaking all the shackles of the Golden Core. Who would have thought that Ziyue happened to be the kind of person who had broken the shackles of the Golden Core but did not transcend the tribulation and waited until now? Everyone wanted to skin Bai Ziyue alive. To think that Bai Ziyue could even think of such a ruthless move. No matter how much they thought of it, no one would have thought of it. That was because transcending the tribulation was really dangerous. Even if there was only one more person, there would be countless unforeseen circumstances and the power of the tribulation would increase. But now there was more than one person transcending the tribulation. With more than 100 cultivators transcending the tribulation together, the power of the tribulation would increase by more than a little. The tribulation clouds in the void were hundreds of kilometers wide, almost covering the entire sky. Under the cover of the sky and the sun, the world became pitch black. Only when the thunderclouds were brewing and thunder and lightning were raging would there be endless flashes of lightning, illuminating the entire world and causing a stinging pain in people's eyes. Those who kill will always be killed. This is the unchanging truth since ancient times. Ziyue's expression did not change as he stood in the Kunwu Golden Pagoda. However, the heavenly tribulation was a heavenly tribulation that belonged to Ziyue alone. Even if he hid in the numinous treasure, it was meaningless. The numinous treasure was not his natal Dharma treasure. Although it recognized him as its master, it did not truly belong to him. Therefore, boom! The void was pierced and an extremely thick heavenly tribulation followed a void passage and entered the Kunwu Golden Pagoda without any damage. Then, it violently blasted towards Ziyue. Come on, let me see how powerful the real heavenly tribulation is. Ziyue was not afraid. The first heavenly tribulation was nothing to him. He even let go of the true dragon profound armor technique and relied solely on his physical body to withstand the attack. Sizzle, thunder rumbled and the violent and destructive power of lightning raged on his body. However, Ziyue's hair curled up slightly and his body did not suffer much damage. He had completely withstood the first heavenly tribulation. After passing the first lightning tribulation, Ziyue immediately noticed the difference. After the heavenly tribulation, an enormous, rich, and special power rapidly flowed through his body membrane, his exterior, and into his body. It even poured into his soul. This is the pure yang energy after the lightning tribulation's baptism. Other than the pure yang energy, there is also a rich life force that can create new life. Ziyue instantly came to his senses and hurriedly guided the pure yang energy into his soul. As for the new life force of creation, he allowed it to circulate within his body. Tribulation transcendence was dangerous and terrifying. However, there were 50 great Daos and 49 heavenly evolutions. Even though the heavens were heartless, there was still a chance for survival. There was also a chance for survival in the destruction of the heavenly tribulation. Sizzle, as the pure yang energy entered Ziyue's soul, it was like water and milk, fusing into one without any hindrance. When he tried to sense it again, He could clearly sense that the pure yin qi in his soul had fused with the pure yang qi, forming a unique combination of yin and yang. Primordial spirit. This was the unique aura of a primordial soul realm expert. Even though it was still very weak, and only took up less than 1/10 of his entire soul, there was already a fundamental difference. Once my soul has been completely transformed by the pure yang energy, it will be time for my soul to completely transform into a primordial soul. Ziyue's mind was clear and he was a little excited. This was because during the transformation process, he could feel that his soul was becoming stronger. It was no longer like before when his soul was complete and could not be improved. He could only continuously accumulate power and transform it into the great soul golden thread. Now, it was as if he had broken some kind of shackle and could become stronger again. Next, his perception fell into his body. The power of creation and rebirth flowed through his body, constantly repairing the particles of his physical body that were slightly damaged due to the tribulation. Moreover, this power of life seemed to be able to penetrate deep into the particles of his physical body, nourishing and strengthening them. It was as if it was undergoing some sort of transformation, causing his physical body to emit a light and a faint fragrance to be emitted from it. Transformation of the body's constitution? Or is it purely a kind of enhancement? Ziyue could not help but be puzzled. However, he could feel that his physical strength, which had been enhanced to the extreme by the true dragon mysterious armor technique, had begun to improve again. While Ziyue was beginning to comprehend the changes after the first tribulation lightning, the thunderclouds in the void were constantly rolling and raging. Soon, the second tribulation lightning struck. Rumble! The 10,000 zhang-long thunderstorm was a vast expanse of red, divided into hundreds and thousands of thunderbolts. The smaller ones were only as thick as an arm, while the larger ones were like giant pillars that supported the sky. Looking from afar, all the thunderbolts were densely packed together, as if they had joined together to form a huge thunderbolt that was as big as a mountain. Boom! It instantly drowned the world. It caused the giant peaks and mountain ranges to be filled with purple light. Every inch of space was filled with tribulation lightning, and it was extremely terrifying. It also caused the entire mountain range to collapse and turn into dust. "Ah, I don't want to die." Screams could be heard from time to time. "Taoist Northming, I won't let you off even if I become a ghost." Shrill cries echoed in the void through the sea of lightning. Such a shocking heavenly tribulation was a disaster for anyone. Not to mention, many of them were Golden Core realm cultivators. They did not have enough accumulation, and their resistance to the heavenly tribulation was even weaker. They could withstand the first tribulation lightning, but facing the consecutive tribulation lightning after that, there was almost no possibility of resisting, and they would definitely die. Therefore, many people cried and cursed crazily. All kinds of unpleasant words echoed in the void. That was the echo of despair, the release of endless resentment. However, in the face of the heavenly tribulation, everything would end. Ziyue's expression did not change, and he turned a deaf ear to it. Dragging everyone into the tribulation lightning was indeed a ruthless move that could definitely kill most of them. However, he had no other choice. The threat of an extreme realm cultivator could make almost any cultivator tremble in fear. He had no choice but to think of this move to protect himself. As for these cultivators, they were blinded by greed or were dragged in by powerful cultivators. They only had themselves to blame and could not blame anyone else. Originally, he only wanted to kill Situ Wu. Since these people wanted to follow him and kill him, he naturally would not be courteous, and would also bury them along with him. Boom! The heavenly tribulation lightning continued to fall. Ziyue's expression did not change, and he only relied on his physical body to withstand it. He realized that completely relying on his physical body to withstand the heavenly tribulation lightning was the most beneficial for him. Although the destructive power of the heavenly tribulation lightning was a great threat to his physical body and soul, the heavenly tribulation lightning's pure yang qi and creation qi would give him greater benefit. After his physical body was tempered by the heavenly tribulation lightning, he could break through the shackles of the true dragon armor technique and advance further. Perhaps the physical body of a sage was just an unattainable dream. However, it was not impossible for the physical body to evolve into a divine ability, be reborn, and evolve into a space. Boom, boom, boom. The continuous heavenly tribulation lightning struck, causing the void to tremble. The ground caved in a few hundred feet due to the destructive power of the heavenly tribulation lightning, revealing endless lava. It's the sixth heavenly tribulation lightning. Even if I use my physical body to withstand such a powerful heavenly tribulation lightning, I won't be able to withstand it. Bai Ziyue's entire body was charred black. The intense pain made his heart tremble. The aroma of roasted meat made his face twitch. He knew that he had to use his natal Dharma treasure and defensive means next. Otherwise, he would not be able to withstand it. At this moment, more than half of the surrounding cultivators had already died. Other than 1 or 2 golden core cultivators who were still resisting, the rest were all powerhouses above the primordial soul realm. However, most of them were very miserable and seemed to be unable to withstand the next heavenly tribulation. The one who was in the best state was probably Situ Wu, an extreme state powerhouse. With a defensive means, he blocked almost all the heavenly tribulation lightning and was almost unharmed. However, from the solemn expression on his face, he was definitely not as relaxed as he thought. If he did not form the avatar stage, he would always be shackled by the great Tao of heaven and earth. Although Situ Wu was an extreme state powerhouse, he had not completely torn the heavens and earth apart and transcended the entire astral realm. Being targeted by the heavenly tribulation, he was naturally in great trouble. In particular, the strength of his heavenly tribulation was the strongest among all the cultivators and was much stronger than Ziyue's. The heavenly tribulation lightning struck him one after another, causing him to consume a lot of energy. Boom! The terrifying heavenly tribulation seemed to be endless as it struck continuously, scorching the heavens and earth and melting the ice and snow. There was not a single inch of land that was intact. "You're so ruthless," an early-stage primordial spirit realm cultivator yelled. He seemed to be filled with endless anger as his entire body was shrouded in electric radiance. While he resisted fiercely, he still managed to get close to Bai Ziyue and unleashed an attack that landed on Bai Ziyue's Kunwu Golden Pagoda. Obviously, he knew that he could not make it through, and he hated Ziyue to the extreme. Therefore, he used up all his energy and risked his life to effect Ziyue's heavenly tribulation. "I was just trying to protect myself. You only have yourself to blame for this. Since you're in so much pain, I'll send you on your way first." Ziyue sneered. Even an extreme state powerhouse would find it difficult to break through the defense of the Kunwu Golden Pagoda, let alone an early primordial soul realm cultivator like him. With 90% of the power neutralized, he could easily resist the remaining power. Then, he waved his hand and a black silk thread flashed and rushed out. It was a perfect grand mystique, the great primordial magnet slash. Qi in an instant, it charged out of the Kunwu Golden Pagoda and arrived in front of the early-stage primordial spirit realm cultivator. It pierced through his defensive means and sliced his physical body into two. At this point, he was still alive. His primordial soul had left his body in time and escaped the terrifying power of destruction. But don't forget that he was in the middle of the thunder tribulation. Endless thunder and lightning struck his primordial spirit. Naturally, some thunder and lightning also struck his physical body. Chi, in an instant, his flesh and blood were charred black and completely destroyed. His primordial soul was struck by the heavenly tribulation and disintegrated layer by layer. It quickly melted and turned into ashes. Perhaps if he were to rely on his physical body to resist, with his primordial spirit within his body, he would still be able to barely resist and survive this lightning tribulation. However, with his primordial spirit outside his body, without any protection, his defensive power was naturally far inferior to when he was supported by various means. Quick, all of you attack him. He's the center of the heavenly tribulation. Only when he's dead will the heavenly tribulation in the sky dissipate and we can survive. However, the early primordial soul realm cultivators' attack had finally awakened the surrounding cultivators. In particular, the demonic Tao cultivators had dense dark yin qi on their bodies and were naturally restrained by the heavenly tribulation. Even if they were of a high cultivation level and powerful, they could not withstand it. Therefore, they hated Ziyue even more. Now that they had awakened, they did not hesitate at all and attacked Ziyue one after another. His spiritual treasure's defense is too strong. Quickly, use your primordial soul attack. The hidden death Taoist from Mount Qingxian roared and a pale green light rushed towards Ziyue. When the others heard this, they immediately attacked without hesitation. At this moment it was a moment of life and death. If Ziyue died, the heavenly tribulation would stop and they would be out of danger. However, if Ziyue was still alive, the heavenly tribulation would continue to strike. Even if some of them could successfully survive, most of them would definitely not be able to escape death. Humph! Ziyue snorted and his eyes emitted a cold light. If it was before, he would be a little worried. This was because compared to other aspects, his soul defense was indeed a big weakness. Even if he had improved the 9 Thunder God-destroying seal to perfection, he could not do anything in the face of Situ Wu's attack. At this moment, he thought of the attack that he had suffered previously and his heart trembled. However, it was completely different now. This was because his soul had really gone through a metamorphosis. After the heavenly tribulation struck, his soul had been sucked in by the pure yang power of the thunder. Now, more than half of his soul had been transformed and was slowly transforming in the direction of the primordial soul. Even though it had not completely transformed, it had strengthened his soul by more than a few times. Naturally, the number of soul defense techniques that he could use was also greatly increased. He quickly used time acceleration and the 9 Thunder God-destroying seals Thunderlight. At the same time, he also used his gifted superpower, Dazed Light. Another 9 God-slaying thunder seals and 3 God absent-minded rays combined to form a perfect soul defense technique. Swoosh, 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 streaks of soul attacks rushed over and hit the soul defense shield, causing Ziyue's soul to tremble. However, the defense shield that he had cast was not completely destroyed. Seeing this, Ziyue did not completely let down his guard. Instead, he looked carefully in the direction of the Wanxiang sect leader, Situ Wu. Although he was wary of the other cultivators' attacks, he was not too concerned. The only thing that made him feel like he was facing a great enemy was the attack from the extreme realm expert, Situ Wu. Situ Wu's primordial soul attack was mysterious. Even now, when he thought of it, he felt a headache. Chapter 797. That kind of power and penetrative power was simply unstoppable. However, what surprised him was that even though everyone else attacked and used all sorts of methods, Situ Wu did not move at all. He remained in the outer region of the heavenly tribulation and withstood the heavenly tribulation alone. Vaguely, there was an inexplicable aura surging like that of an immortal. Seeing this, Ziyue relaxed and then looked fiercely at the other cultivators. With a thought, he used 1,000 miles in an instant and rushed in front of one of them. This person was the demon Tao cultivator who had shouted and wanted to attack him, Taoist Blood Mosquito. He stretched out his hand and the lightning seal flashed and disappeared. It was him who had used another 9 lightning god-destroying seal. Taoist blood mosquito's expression changed drastically. He was already in a miserable state from the heavenly tribulation and did not expect Ziyue to be so fast and attack so quickly. When the god-destroying lightning seal entered his body, that special primordial spirit attack with a trace of thunder attribute seemed to be able to destroy everything. It broke through his primordial spirit defense almost instantly and turned his primordial spirit into ashes. Boom! Then, a bolt of heavenly tribulation descended and blasted him apart. His bones flew everywhere. He was dead. Taoist blood mosquito died so quickly? Many primordial spirit cultivators exclaimed. They were aware of Taoist blood mosquito's strength. Even if there was the threat of the heavenly tribulation, it would not be a problem for him to withstand 1 or 2 bolts of heavenly tribulation. In the end, he was killed by Ziyue's finger. One could imagine how terrifying that attack was. After killing Taoist blood mosquito, Ziyue did not stop. In a flash, he arrived beside another cultivator. This cultivator was Taoist Hidden Death, who had said that he wanted to attack Ziyue with his primordial spirit. His opponent's judgment was right. To a certain extent, primordial spirit attacks were his weakness and put him under great pressure. If the Thousand Phenomenon sect master, Sidu Wu, joined the attack just now, it would definitely be difficult for him to survive. He would definitely be in the most dangerous moment. Fortunately, for some reason, Sidu Wu did not attack. Otherwise, the consequences would be unpredictable. However, it was also because of this that Ziyue chose to attack Taoist Hidden Death as his second target. A flying sword pierced through the void in a flash and arrived in front of him, stabbing him viciously. Chi! A special ripple flashed, and Taoist Hidden Death's expression changed drastically. He hurriedly fused into the void in an attempt to dodge. However, Ziyue's supreme dermic heart sword technique was unparalleled in speed even without the support of time acceleration. Its power was even more terrifying, reaching the pinnacle of the primordial spirit realm. Even though his speed was extremely fast, he was still pierced by the flying sword. He was blasted out of the void. However, Taoist Hidden Death was indeed worthy of being one of the top 3 killers in Mount Qingxian. His methods were strange and powerful. Even if he was blasted out of the void by Ziyue, his entire body was pierced by the flying sword. However, he still managed to evade the attack by transforming his body into a bloody mist. What a powerful and terrifying attack! It's much stronger than old freak Ding Chen's palm strike. If I hadn't cast the blood mist incarnation in time, I would have been in deep trouble. Taoist Hidden Death felt a chill in his heart. The killing power contained in the other party's sword was too strong. Even if he cast the blood mist incarnation, he could only barely resist it. If there were 2 more strikes, he would definitely die. Even so, he was severely injured at this moment. His face was pale and his chi and blood were thin. Even his primordial spirit was weak. Humph, can you dodge it? Ziyue snorted coldly and directly activated the Kunwu Golden Pagoda while enduring the thunder tribulation. Boom! The Kunwu Golden Pagoda unleashed a ferocious attack and blasted Taoist Hidden Death's body. It was comparable to an attack from an expert of the Supreme Realm. It was like a huge star hammer smashing down. With just a slight movement, the void collapsed and a large black hole appeared. It crushed Taoist Hidden Death's body and instantly destroyed his defense and flesh particles. Even though he had cast the blood mist incarnation and split his body into blood mist particles, his life-saving ability was extremely strong. However, not only did this attack cover an extremely wide area, the strength of the attack was also extremely terrifying. It completely annihilated every single blood mist particle in his body, and also completely killed him. Taoist Hidden Death is dead too? The surrounding people were terrified. What a monster! Countless people cried out miserably as they watched Ziyue walk in the heavenly tribulation lightning as if he was invincible. He was unharmed, but he continued to kill his enemies. They were all in despair. Does the heavenly tribulation not work on him? It's already so difficult for us essence soul realm cultivators to resist it. As the main person undergoing the tribulation transcendence, he's even more targeted. However, he doesn't seem to be afraid at all. He's still so arrogant and keeps killing. Such a monster should be struck by lightning. He shouldn't exist in this world. Many people were cursing and roaring crazily. Just thinking about how monstrous Bai Ziyue was made them feel incomparably terrified. Now that they were in the middle of the heavenly tribulation, their fear was magnified and their hearts were cold. The ninth wave, the 9x9 heavenly tribulation, is here. In fact, Ziyue wasn't as relaxed as they thought. He could withstand the 9x9 heavenly tribulation with his physical strength. However, from the seventh wave onwards, the power of the heavenly tribulation increased by a level. He could only withstand it with the help of his supreme defensive technique, the true dragon mysterious armor technique. However, he was actually surrounded and attacked by others while he was undergoing the heavenly tribulation. Although most of the attacks were blocked by the Kunwu Golden Pagoda, he found it difficult to maintain the remaining attack. The Jindan essence in his body was greatly depleted. If not for the fact that he was constantly using his soul power to maintain it, it would be difficult for him to withstand it. Boom, boom, boom. 9 consecutive bolts of tribulation lightning, which were like pillars that supported the heavens, struck down. Even the void seemed to be torn apart as they passed through the Kunwu Golden Pagoda and blasted towards Bai Ziyue. Bam! 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 Bolts of heavenly tribulation lightning landed on the defensive armor of the true dragon mysterious armor technique. The armor dimmed and banged. However, Ziyue didn't really use the true dragon mysterious armor technique to block all the power of the heavenly tribulation lightning. Instead, he purposely left a slit and guided the power of the heavenly tribulation lightning towards himself. The power of the heavenly tribulation lightning followed the slit and landed on his natal flying sword, the northern underworld, making sizzling sounds. Only then would the remaining power truly land on his body and invade it. The heavenly tribulation contained endless destruction, but it also contained great fortune. Ziyue discovered this point, so he took out the northern underworld flying sword and let it float above his head to undergo the heavenly tribulation together. With the help of the tempering of the heavenly tribulation, he could clearly feel that his flying sword was becoming stronger. On his body, under the suction force of the heavenly tribulation, there were some marks that seemed like the laws of heaven and earth. Even the wisp of spirituality in the northern underworld flying sword was strengthened a lot and became more lively and excited with the baptism of the heavenly tribulation lightning. Ziyue estimated that with a few more fortunes, his northern underworld flying sword's spirituality would increase greatly and it would be officially promoted to a spiritual treasure. Spiritual treasures were beyond the level of primordial spirit treasures. Even if the body was still a little lacking, it could make up for its shortcomings in a short time, and its power would be greatly increased. Naturally, Ziyue's strength would also be greatly improved. The remaining power of the heavenly tribulation lightning fell on Ziyue's body, although it made his body feel limp and numb all the time. It just happened that his physical body could undergo the baptism of the heavenly tribulation and undergo a deep transformation and improvement. It was killing 2 birds with 1 stone. It was also a kind of fortune. Phew! I've finally passed it. The power of the 99 heavenly tribulations that I've undergone is indeed much stronger than I imagined. Compared to Situ Zheng's heavenly tribulation, the 79 heavenly tribulations are comparable to his 99 heavenly tribulations. The 89 heavenly tribulations are comparable to his great tribulations of life and death. As for the 99 heavenly tribulations, they are comparable to the combined power of the heavenly tribulations that he has undergone. Zue heaved a long sigh of relief, but a trace of seriousness flashed across his eyes. He knew that the more powerful the heavenly tribulations were, the greater the rewards and benefits that he would receive after he had passed them. The increase in his strength would also be more obvious. For example, Situ Zheng's heavenly tribulations were terrifying, so when he broke through to the primordial spirit realm, his strength increased tremendously. Although he had just entered the primordial spirit realm, his combat strength was already comparable to some of the older cultivators in the middle stage of the primordial spirit realm. Zue's heavenly tribulations were even more powerful than Situ Zheng's. He also believed that the rewards and benefits that he would receive would be far greater than Situ Zheng's. His strength would also increase tremendously because of this. However, the heavenly tribulations represented destruction after all. It was a kind of annihilation and test that heaven and earth gave to those who were too powerful. Even though he had passed through the 99 major heavenly tribulations, it did not mean that he was safe. This was because there was still the great tribulations of life and death remaining. After the great tribulations of life and death, he might even have to face an even more powerful heavenly tribulations. He was not confident. He has already passed the 99 major heavenly tribulations. With Taoist North Ming's strength and potential, he will definitely face the 10th great tribulations of life and death. I just don't know if he will be able to pass them safely. Taoist North Ming is truly amazing. His talent, strength, and potential are all unparalleled in his generation. He can be called a monster. With the strength and potential that he has displayed, it should not be a problem for him to pass the 10th great tribulations of life and death. However, I don't know if you have noticed that the power of his heavenly tribulations is much greater than Situ Wu's. In addition, he is not like Situ Wu, who has the support of the myriad sect and many treasures to help him resist the great tribulations. Therefore, it is uncertain whether he will be able to pass them safely. However, it does not matter whether he can pass the heavenly tribulations or not. The reputation of Taoist Dark North will definitely be spread throughout the entire immortal Tao world as a result of this incident. That's right. Putting everything else aside, he has killed many powerhouses this time. There are even 7 or 8 primordial soul realm cultivators, not to mention the numerous golden core realm cultivators. Now look, there are only 4 cultivators who haven't died. Outside the lightning tribulations, countless cultivators were discussing animatedly. They were all focused on the group of people who were undergoing the tribulations. Among them, the most eye-catching was naturally Zue. He had withstood the heavenly tribulations and killed more than 100 powerhouses in one go. This truly shocked countless people. Apart from him, there were 5 other cultivators who had also passed the 99 major heavenly tribulations. The first of them was naturally the myriad sect's sect master, the supreme realm powerhouse Situ Wu. His methods were indeed brilliant and powerful. He was also the one who had it the easiest out of all the powerhouses. Facing the lightning tribulations that constantly fell, he remained calm throughout. He was indeed worthy of his reputation as a supreme realm powerhouse. Countless people also predicted that if Zue really succeeded in passing the tribulations, he would definitely be one of the few who would be able to pass them safely. Next was Zhao Guangming from the 9-star Taoist Palace. Zhao Guangming was also at the pinnacle of the primordial soul realm. His starlight Tao technique was mysterious and unpredictable. In addition, his natal magic treasure was a star-gathering bottle, which had a strong absorption effect against the lightning tribulations. The third was a cultivator from Mount Qingxian called Taoist Buchan. His immortal spell realm was slightly lower, at the mid-stage of the primordial soul realm. However, the heavenly tribulations were judged by the strength of one's primordial soul. Although his immortal spell realm was much lower than Situ Wu's and Zhao Guangming's, the lightning tribulations were relatively weaker. This was why he could withstand it. However, his current state was extremely miserable. His body was charred black and faintly charred. If he did not have any other means to protect himself, it would be extremely difficult for him to withstand the next lightning tribulations. What surprised everyone the most was actually the fourth cultivator, the itinerant cultivator Jiang Taixian. His immortal spell realm was the lowest among everyone, even lower than Ziyue's. He was at the late stage of the golden elixir realm. However, he managed to withstand the 9 lightning tribulations and did not completely perish. Countless people were shocked. They did not expect that even many primordial soul realm cultivators could not withstand the first 9 lightning tribulations. However, he, a cultivator at the late stage of the golden elixir realm, could withstand it until now. Even though his lightning tribulations were the lowest among everyone because of his strength, there was no doubt that he was not considered weak in the same realm. Even with the strength that he displayed, he was actually only 1 step away from being crowned as a golden elixir realm cultivator. Ah! Help! Elder North Sea, I actually did not want to do anything. I was forced. Taoist Wugu, Matriarch 5 Poisons, and Taoist Blood Mosquito have surrounded me and a dozen other golden elixir realm cultivators. Please help me withstand the heavenly tribulations. Otherwise, I will die. I will really die. I don't want to die. Just as everyone was surprised by Jiang Taishuan's strange behavior, he was crying for his parents. While he was explaining himself, he was also frantically begging for help. Save you? Ziyue glanced at him. In the void, the heavenly tribulations were still brewing. There was indeed a certain amount of time between the 9 great heavenly tribulations and the life and death tribulations. It was also a rare time for those who were undergoing the tribulations to take a breather. Regardless of whether it was Situ Wu, Zhao Guangming, or old Taoist Bu Chun, they all took this opportunity to frantically swallow spirit pills and recuperate. Chapter 798. The power of the heavenly tribulation was so terrifying that no one dared to underestimate it. Even though Situ Wu and the others had already survived the heavenly tribulation and their souls had undergone the baptism of the heavenly tribulation and transformed into primordial spirits, they still dared not underestimate the heavenly tribulation. Not to mention, the heavenly tribulation that Ziyue triggered was so powerful that it surpassed countless cultivators of the same level. This was also why so many primordial spirit cultivators could not withstand it and were struck to death. Therefore, even though Zhao Guangming and old Taoist Bu Chun wanted nothing more than to strike Ziyue alive and kill him to end the heavenly tribulation, they did not dare to act rashly. They could only try their best to recover their strength and hope that they could survive the last wave of the heavenly tribulation. Yes. In this world, only Senior can save me. Jiang Taixian nodded hurriedly. His teary eyes were sincere as he said, "The heavenly tribulation is locked in by the heavens and earth. Other than the cultivator who is going through the heavenly tribulation, no one else can help him. Therefore, even if there are supreme realm cultivators among the elders of the sect, or even powerful cultivators of the immortal Tao, it is impossible for them to help the younger disciples safely pass through the heavenly tribulation. However, if an outsider accidentally falls into the range of the heavenly tribulation due to a moment of carelessness, the cultivator who is going through the heavenly tribulation can help and protect the cultivator." Ziyue frowned. He was aware of this. In the countless years of the immortal Tao world, the heavenly tribulation was a hurdle that every cultivator who wanted to become a primordial spirit cultivator had to face. Some of the rules of the heavenly tribulation were gradually figured out as time passed. 4 cultivators who accidentally stepped into the heavenly tribulation area and were thus triggered to undergo the heavenly tribulation together, other than bearing the burden themselves. Only the cultivator who was really going through the heavenly tribulation could help them withstand the heavenly tribulation. But why should I help you? Ziyue glanced at him indifferently and said calmly, I am willing to be your slave and be loyal to you forever. I can even help you with some small matters that are within my power. Moreover, when I condensed my golden core, it was a first-grade golden core. In the immortal Tao world, I can be considered a genius. Furthermore, I was able to survive the 9 major heavenly tribulations and have an 80% chance of breaking through to the primordial spirit realm in the future. If you save me, it would be equivalent to gaining a future primordial soul realm cultivator who is absolutely loyal to you. It's definitely not a loss. Besides, Jiang Taixian was taken aback. He hurriedly began to praise himself. In fact, he had no confidence in the upcoming lightning tribulation. Being able to pass through the 9 major heavenly tribulations was already the result of him doing his best. However, he knew that he would definitely die in the next wave of life and death calamity. And Ziyue was his only chance. He didn't want to die, so he naturally didn't want to let go of this one and only chance of survival. In addition, it had to be mentioned that Ziyue's talent, strength, and means were the strongest he had ever seen or heard of. If he could safely pass through the heavenly tribulation this time, his future achievements, potential, and strength would definitely be peerless in the world. He was indeed a huge backer. For a rogue cultivator like him, it was equivalent to directly reporting a huge leg. It was definitely not a loss. Interesting. Ziyue smiled slightly. In the end, he shot out a ray of guiding light and led him into the Kunwu Golden Pagoda. Indeed, as Jiang Taixian had said, with his strength, being able to pass through the 9 major heavenly tribulations meant that his means were indeed extraordinary and his potential was amazing. It should be known that the power of the heavenly tribulation that Ziyue had triggered was far more powerful than that of an ordinary heavenly tribulation. Moreover, he had indeed noticed that Jiang Taixian had rushed into the tribulation area not out of his own will, but because he had been caught in the middle. Thinking about it, with the strength and means that Ziyue had shown before, if a golden core realm cultivator approached him, wouldn't he be courting death? Those who would rush over were either the loyal subordinates of those primordial soul realm cultivators, or like Jiang Taixian, those who had been forced to rush over by the strong. Thank you, Senior Baiming. Jiang Taixian was overjoyed and said gratefully. He had been in despair, but his survival instinct made him speak to Ziyue. He didn't expect that he would really be protected by Ziyue. Naturally, he was extremely grateful. Zhao Guangming and Taoist Buchen's expressions changed slightly when they saw this. They were a little tempted. Especially Taoist Buchen. He didn't have the slightest confidence in the next heavenly tribulation and was extremely terrified. Seeing this, he also had the urge to lower his head and beg for mercy. However, thinking of the enmity between them and the fact that their heavenly tribulations weren't as powerful as Jiang Taishuan's, Ziyue definitely wouldn't be able to withstand it and wouldn't be willing to accept his pleas for mercy. Therefore, he sighed and looked at the void in despair. Rumble. It was also at this moment that the void rumbled. The heavenly tribulation that had been brewing for a long time finally fell again. This time, it was the more powerful life and death illusion tribulation after the 9 major heavenly tribulations. Not only did this heavenly tribulation have the terrifying destructive power of the lightning tribulation, but it also contained soul attacks, virtual illusions, and other means to destroy the soul. It was also a huge test for the consciousness and willpower of a cultivator. Boom! The sea of lightning struck, and purple gas rose. It was as if the blurry heavenly lightning had descended. It was extremely terrifying and illuminated the world in a crimson white, as if it could destroy everything. Any cultivator would be terrified by such a powerful lightning tribulation. Ziyue and the others, who were in the middle of it, naturally looked more dignified. Boom! The heavenly tribulation fell, and the void was covered in a crimson white. It seemed that there was nothing in the world except for the lightning tribulation. The lightning fell on the cultivators who were undergoing the tribulation, and a series of crackling sounds were heard. Almost instantly, a blood-curdling scream was heard. It was Taoist Buchen. He had already done his best to withstand the 9 major heavenly tribulations. Now that the life and death illusion tribulation had fallen, its power was even more powerful than the previous lightning tribulations combined. Naturally, it was even more difficult to withstand. He was instantly destroyed by the lightning tribulation and completely turned into ashes. He was dead. His divine power was destroyed and no longer existed. At the same time, 2 consecutive lightning tribulations rushed toward Ziyue and fell on the true dragon armor technique that he had used. Boom! Boom! Of the 2 lightning tribulations, one was stronger and one was weaker. The weaker lightning tribulation was the one that was supposed to fall on Ziyue under his protection. As for the stronger lightning tribulation, it was the one that Ziyue himself had to withstand. The 2 lightning tribulations fell at the same time, and they were full of destructive power. They seemed to be able to annihilate everything and almost turn matter into nothingness. However, when they fell on Ziyue's true dragon armor technique, they only caused the armor to dim slightly before they were blocked. The destructive power of this lightning tribulation is not much of a threat to me. Ziyue felt relieved. When he used his full combat strength, the defensive power of his true dragon armor technique had already reached an unimaginable level. It was enough to withstand a full blow from an expert at the peak of the primordial soul realm. Although the 2 lightning tribulations were powerful, one of them was at most at the level of a full blow from an expert at the peak of the golden elixir realm. To him, it was not even an itch. He could withstand it with his physical body alone. As for the other lightning tribulation, although it was much stronger and was comparable to a full blow from an expert at the middle stage of the primordial soul realm, it could not shake his true dragon armor technique at all. What really made him wary was the soul attack technique that accompanied the 2 lightning tribulations, the disillusionment light. The disillusionment light rushed into Ziyue's body almost without any resistance and acted on his soul. The weaker lightning tribulation only made his vision blur for a moment. It was as if he was being pulled into an unknown environment by some special force. However, he came to his senses in an instant and was not affected at all. However, the remaining disillusionment light was obviously much stronger. The many soul defense techniques that he had prepared for it were all useless. He suddenly felt that he had entered a special environment. This environment was very familiar. There were tall buildings, heavy traffic, beautiful women, and many familiar faces. He thought that he had forgotten them, but they were actually his family and friends that were deeply rooted in his memories. This world is too real. It is so real that I miss it and am unwilling to wake up. However, what is fake is fake. After all, I have come to this world. No matter how much I miss the scenes of my previous life, they are still just memories. Ziyue sighed faintly. Soon, he opened his eyes again, and they became unprecedentedly clear. The life and death disillusionment tribulation was indeed very powerful. Apart from the power of the lightning tribulations, the threat of the disillusionment light was even greater. It magnified the deepest secrets in a cultivator's heart. Even the primordial soul defense was useless against it. This was a test of the strength of a cultivator's soul and will. However, Ziyue's will had already reached an extremely profound level after a long period of cultivation. An illusion of this level could not affect him at all. However, the illusions that appeared in his previous life made him feel slightly conflicted. I've passed it. I've finally passed it. The power of this lightning strike was truly shocking, causing people to feel despair. However, I've finally passed it. Zhao Guangming of the 9-star Dao Palace opened his eyes and could not help but reveal a look of ecstasy and confidence. The power of the life and death disillusionment tribulation left him with lingering fear. No one would want to endure a second one. However, he had successfully passed it and was safe and sound. Even if his appearance was miserable and extremely wretched, I'm finally safe. It's a pity that old Taoist Dustless fell to the last lightning tribulation. Zhao Guangming sighed, but a smug feeling rose in his heart. Even Situ Wu secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Even if he could withstand the 10th life and death disillusionment tribulation, he would still find it difficult. The heavenly tribulation is finally over. Who would have thought that Taoist Dark North would drag so many people into his tribulation? In the end, only 4 people passed it safely. This Taoist Dark North is truly ruthless and tyrannical. Before he passed the tribulation, he displayed extraordinary battle strength and killed 2 peak primordial spirit realm cultivators in a row. Now that he has successfully passed the tribulation and become a primordial spirit realm cultivator, his strength will definitely soar again. However, I wonder what level his strength has reached now. Can he really stand shoulder to shoulder with Paramount Realm cultivators? Even if he is not as strong as Paramount Realm cultivators, he definitely has battle strength comparable to Paramount Realm cultivators and can dominate a region. Countless cultivators looked at the center of the tribulation and sighed with emotion. This day was truly too exciting for them. They had watched the tribulation of 2 peak Golden Core Realm cultivators in a row, which made them feel even more nostalgic. Many people also gained a deeper understanding of the heavenly tribulation and laid a solid foundation for their own tribulations in the future. Wait a minute? Why haven't the thunderclouds in the sky dispersed? Suddenly, a cultivator exclaimed with a look of disbelief. When the others saw this, they hurriedly looked at the void and were all dumbfounded. In the void, the dark clouds pressed down. Under the pressure of the power of heaven and earth, the heavenly tribulation seemed to be even more oppressive and showed no signs of dissipating. The heavenly tribulation is not over yet. There's still a heavenly tribulation after this great tribulation of life and death? Everyone was stunned. They couldn't believe their eyes. It was already rare for an ordinary cultivator to be able to pass all 9 major heavenly tribulations. Only those who were shockingly talented and had a strong foundation could pass the 10th great tribulation of life and death after 9 major heavenly tribulations. For example, Situ Zheng, the first senior brother of the heavenly spirit sect, the white-bone Taoist of the sky demon region, and so on. However, looking at the situation now, Ziyue's heavenly tribulation was not only much more powerful, but the number of heavenly tribulations that descended was also much greater than that of ordinary cultivators. There's still a heavenly tribulation? What kind of heavenly tribulation is there after the great tribulation of life and death? Even Situ Wu's expression turned a little unpleasant. Ever since he had started cultivating, he had seen countless outstanding figures, but he had never expected that a figure as brilliant as Taoist Dark North would suddenly rise to prominence. After the great tribulation of life and death, there was a heavenly tribulation that was about to descend. How is this possible? Zhao Guangming, who had a smug look on his face, was dumbfounded. He did not expect Ziyue's heavenly tribulation to not end with the great tribulation of life and death. Wind and clouds were brewing in the void, and there was a heavenly tribulation that was about to descend. An unprecedented sense of panic instantly took over his mind. The 10th heavenly tribulation of life and death had already terrified him and made it extremely difficult for him to withstand it. Now that there was an 11th heavenly tribulation, even with his strong foundation, he was in despair. What kind of heavenly tribulation is there after the great tribulation of life and death? I just hope it's not beyond my limit. Before the heavenly tribulation, Ziyue had already guessed that there would be more than 10 heavenly tribulations. Now that the 11th heavenly tribulation of life and death was about to descend, he felt some pressure while lamenting in his heart. Even if his defense was extremely strong, he could not be sure if the power of the next heavenly tribulation would exceed his limit. After all, although the great tribulation of life and death was not powerful, it had directly invaded his soul and caused his thoughts to become chaotic, which still shocked him. The 11th heavenly tribulation of life and death would definitely be stronger than the previous one. If it could invade his soul and guide his thoughts and memories like the 10th heavenly tribulation, he was actually not confident. Chapter 799. However, even if he was worried, there was nothing he could do now. He hurriedly used the attribute panel to replenish his Jindan essence and soul power. He also unleashed his full combat strength and performed many defensive techniques with all his might. Heaven Patching Technique, Great Path Dharma Form, True Dragon Armor Technique, 5 Emperor Royal Robe. In addition, in terms of soul defense, he also performed the 9 Thunder God Destroying Seal and the Absent-Mindedness Divine Ability in succession. With the help of these soul techniques, he formed many soul defense lights. In a short period of time, Bai Ziyue performed all of his defensive skills. It was also at this moment that the oppressive thunder tribulation in the void brewed under the clouds and quickly took shape, turning into huge purple human-shaped lightning bolts. Some of these purple human-shaped lightning bolts were dressed in Taoist robes, some in scholar robes, and some in monk robes. They were all different and their faces were a little blurry. However, their eyes were cold and piercing, as if they could pierce through the heavens. They were describing the ruthlessness of the great path. Rumble! 4 human-shaped lightning bolts blasted down one after another and rushed towards the 4 figures below the thunder tribulation. The 4 human-shaped lightning bolts could see through the celestial technique realms. One was at the ultimate primordial spirit realm, one was at the peak primordial spirit realm, one was at the peak primordial spirit realm, one was at the peak golden elixir realm, and one was at the late golden elixir realm. They corresponded to the celestial technique realms of the 4 cultivators below. When they landed, they also rushed towards the cultivators of the corresponding realms. One of them rushed towards Situ Wu, one rushed towards Zhao Guangming, and the remaining 2 rushed towards Ziyue. When they got close, they each performed a supreme secret technique. Every move contained a terrifying mystery of the Tao laws. As the power flowed, it seemed to naturally suppress everything and rush towards Yi Shiwen fiercely. These human-shaped lightning bolts seemed to be the traces left behind by the experts of a certain period in the ancient times. Their moves are even recorded in the records of the various major sections. Is the move that the monk used the 1000 Buddha palm of the 1000 Buddha sect? And the move that the Taoist used was the supreme Taoist technique, jade-breaking divine light? Are these human-shaped lightning bolts related to the various major sects? No, that's not right. These people actually existed. Or rather, they should have existed in a certain period of time. If I'm not wrong, they should be the humanoid phantoms left behind in the great Tao of heaven and earth by the outstanding geniuses of various eras since ancient times. It was a record of a certain expert's strongest battle prowess and strongest technique at a certain moment. At this time, it is actually in the form of a lightning tribulation, and it is being used as a test for the person undergoing the tribulation. In that case, this lightning tribulation is actually equivalent to them fighting against the ancients? Only by defeating the peak experts of the same generation in ancient times can one safely survive this tribulation? When the 11th heavenly tribulation descended, the scene that appeared shocked countless people. The ancient remnant image descended in the form of a heavenly tribulation. It was too shocking. It also made countless people tremble in fear. One had to know that since ancient times, there had been far too many powerhouses in the immortal spell world. There were countless existences who were invincible in the same realm, and there were as many as the hairs on a cow. And this heavenly tribulation was descending in the form of an ancient cultivator of the same realm. It was obvious that those who could be recorded by the world's remnant image were definitely not ordinary people. They were definitely the most outstanding cultivators of the same realm in the current generation, or even from ancient times until now. And this was directly equivalent to Ziyue and the others having to defeat the strongest cultivator of the same realm since ancient times in order to safely pass this tribulation. Fight the strongest cultivator of the same realm since ancient times? Ziyue looked at the two human-shaped lightning bolts that were rapidly charging over, and a strange expression gradually appeared on his face. If it was like the great life and death calamity, where the sole defense was not affected at all and the desire in his heart directly expanded to carry out the test, he would still be a little worried. After all, that kind of test was too much of one's heart. Even if one's heart was as strong as iron and his will was as sharp as a knife, there would still be times when one's carelessness would cause one to fall deeply into it and find it difficult to break free. But if it was just fighting against the phantoms formed by the lightning tribulation, he was not afraid at all. Back when he was in the aperture awakening stage, he had never lost to anyone of the same realm in a battle. Fighting across realms was as simple as eating a meal. Now that he had reached the peak of the golden elixir stage, his previous endless accumulation had all been converted into battle strength, allowing his strength to surpass those of the same realm by too much. It was enough for him to fight across 1 or 2 or even 3 or 4 small realms. At least at this moment, he was fearless in the face of a peak primordial soul stage cultivator and could be evenly matched or even crushed. Because of this, when the human-shaped lightning bolts that were equivalent to the late and peak golden elixir stage charged over, he also made his move. His hands transformed into a divine light that transformed into a flowing light and slashed out. It was a Tao technique, the primordial magnet divine light. Chi chi chi, endless divine light flowed like a river of stars, thick and heavy, and also filled with an unparalleled power. Under the crushing pressure, the layers of space seemed to be unable to withstand and showed signs of collapse. It landed on the two human-shaped lightning bolts with seemingly slow but actually fast speed. Boom! The two human-shaped lightning bolts blurred and tried to dodge, but the primordial magnet divine light was a Tao technique that also contained endless mysteries of Tao laws. The great Tao was formless, but it also seemed to have substance and sealed the entire void. The human-shaped lightning bolts could not dodge at all and were caught in the net in an instant. Then, they were crushed by the divine light and completely dissipated with a sizzling sound. This heavenly tribulation was over just like that? Standing not far away from Ziyue, Jiang Taixian, who was a little frightened, was dumbfounded when he saw this. If he had to face the human-shaped lightning bolts that were comparable to the late golden elixir stage cultivators, he had no doubt that Ziyue could easily block and crush them. However, even the human-shaped lightning bolts that were comparable to the peak golden elixir stage cultivators were annihilated by Ziyue with a single blow, which really shocked him. He knew that this heavenly tribulation was the ultimate test of heaven and earth for a cultivator. It was a reappearance of the strongest cultivator of the same realm since ancient times. Facing such an existence, no matter how talented a cultivator was, it would be very difficult to end it in a short period of time. In the end, Ziyue only struck once, and only once. After that strike, the two human-shaped lightning bolts were destroyed in body and soul and no longer existed. This heavenly tribulation was also completely over. In contrast, he looked outside the Kunwu Golden Pagoda at the situation of the tribulation between Zhao Guangming of the 9-star Dao Palace and Situ Wu of the Lameter stage. Battle swords surged like waves and terrifying yuan qi undulated. It was obvious that the battle was in an extremely intense state. Furthermore, everyone was able to clearly see that the humanoid lightning had the absolute upper hand in the battle. Even Situ Wu, a Lemeter, was suppressed by the humanoid lightning that was comparable to a Lemeter. He tried to counterattack several times, but all of his attacks were forcefully resisted. Situ Wu's momentum was quickly reversed, and he was forced to retreat. There were signs that he was injured. Is the heavenly tribulation of Taoist North Ming too weak, or is his strength too terrifying? He actually overcame this heavenly tribulation so easily and simply? This heavenly tribulation is even stronger than the great tribulation of life and death. It is definitely much stronger than all the previous heavenly tribulations. This can be seen from the strength of the human-shaped lightning bolts that Zhao Guangming of the Nine-Star Dao Palace and the sect master of the Myriad Phenomenon sect faced. The fact that Taoist North Ming overcame it so easily only proves one thing. His strength is unparalleled. Even in ancient times, he has always been the strongest among his peers. A cultivator spoke up and made a firm conclusion. The others were silent. They wanted to refute but found that they had no way of speaking. Ziyue did indeed have such strength. This was proven by the fact that he had consecutively killed 2 peak primordial spirit realm experts in the previous fierce battle. If he had not been the strongest among his peers, how could he have defied the odds and killed 2 peak primordial spirit realm experts as a peak golden core realm cultivator? This was a battle that transcended an entire major realm. The significance of this was completely different from some so-called defied odds and killed an early primordial spirit realm cultivator as a peak golden core realm cultivator. Kill! Zhao Guangming roared furiously and fought until he went berserk, using all sorts of techniques. However, the human-shaped lightning bolt attacked like lightning. Not only was it faster, but its offensive techniques were also much sharper. Terrifying attacks blasted out and landed on Zhao Guangming's body, causing his body to tremble and the defensive light on his body to become extremely dim. Finally, as a pale blue profound light rushed out, it was like a fluttering catkin, but also like a flash of lightning. It crashed into his defensive profound light and quickly shattered it. Then, without losing any momentum, it crashed into his body. Rumble! Zhao Guangming's chest was instantly charred black. The terrifying dazzling light seemed to contain a primordial spirit attack technique as it pierced into his primordial spirit like a sharp knife. Boundless pain instantly drowned him. His entire body began to convulse. Die! A shout that seemed to have come from ancient times was heard. The human-shaped lightning bolt's hand was like a saber as it quickly slashed down. This slash was too fast and too sharp. It was as fast as lightning and the power of Tao flowed. It was unpredictable and unparalleled. Poof! No! Zhao Guangming had just regained consciousness when he let out a cry of despair. However, it was to no avail. His entire head was chopped off and soared into the sky. Obviously, Zhao Guangming, who was at the peak of the primordial spirit realm, was not as powerful as the human-shaped lightning bolt that had dominated the same realm since ancient times. The difference in absolute combat strength made him pale in comparison to the human-shaped lightning bolt's attack. He could not resist and was killed. After killing Zhao Guangming with a hand chop, the humanoid lightning's ice-cold eyes inexplicably looked toward the Kunwu Golden Pagoda. Bai Ziyue's body seemed to be filled with complicated emotions, and there was even a trace of intense fighting intent. However, according to the rules of heaven and earth, his opponent could only be Zhao Guangming. Now that Zhao Guangming's aura had dissipated and he had died, his figure also dissipated and disappeared without a trace. On the other side, Situ Wu and his human-shaped lightning bolt were still fighting fiercely. Both of them had reached the ultimate primordial soul realm. Their attacks, defenses, speed, and other means had all reached the limits of what could be achieved in the primordial soul realm. As they fought, the great path roared and the heavens and earth collapsed. Large swaths of mountains and rivers were swept up by the attacks of the two of them, turning into dust and turning into particles of nothingness. However, as time passed, the outcome of the battle between the two gradually became clear. In the beginning, the human-shaped lightning bolt had a strong aura and had the upper hand in the battle. However, every move of the human-shaped lightning bolt consumed a lot of energy, and the energy in his body was limited. As they continued to fight and unleash terrifying power, the energy in the human-shaped lightning bolt was also constantly being worn down. Unknowingly, the sharpness and power of his attacks gradually weakened. In the end, he was still not as strong as Situ Wu, who had spiritual pills to replenish his energy and could continuously draw energy from the void and even the hollow to recover. Then, he was suppressed, defeated, and finally destroyed. From then on, Ziyue's 11th tribulation, the human-shaped lightning tribulation, had finally been completely passed. Of all the people who had undergone the tribulation, besides Jiang Taixian, who was already under the protection of Ziyue, only Zhao Guangming of the 9-star Dao Palace had not been able to pass this tribulation and had completely perished. More than 100 people went through the tribulation together, and in the end, only 3 were left. And the 11th tribulation, the human-shaped lightning tribulation, has appeared. It will definitely be recorded in the annals of the immortal Tao and the biographies of the great Tao. Countless cultivators in the future will look up to it. Indeed, Taoist North Ming's talent is unparalleled in the world. Throughout the ages, no one in the same realm can compare to him. However, this tribulation should be completely over, right? Ordinary cultivators can't even touch the great tribulation of life and death. The human-shaped lightning tribulation that Taoist North Ming went through is definitely the strongest tribulation in history. It should be over. In the world, there must be no tribulation that is stronger than this. Countless people sighed and guessed that the human-shaped lightning tribulation this time must be the last one, and that Ziyue had already successfully passed the tribulation. However, Situ Wu, who had just defeated the human-shaped lightning tribulation and did not even have time to catch his breath, revealed a look of shock on his face. He said in fear, "There's more." "There's still one more?" The others also exclaimed as they looked at the sky. Under the compression of the endless lightning tribulation, it evolved and formed 3 huge cauldrons. Lightning cauldrons. This was the result of the lightning tribulation being condensed to the extreme. It had already taken physical form, and it had even given birth to a lightning Tao artifact. The 3 lightning cauldrons stood on 3 legs. The 4 walls of the cauldrons seemed to be carved with the true forms of the 4 divine beasts, which evolved into the phantoms of true dragons, phoenixes, white tigers, black tortoises, and other divine beasts. And in the center of the lightning cauldrons, there were streams of pure lightning essence that contained endless power of creation and vitality. The lightning tribulation cauldron has taken physical form. How terrifying is the power of this tribulation lightning! Everyone was stunned, and their hearts were filled with fear. The previous lightning tribulations had already frightened countless people. They believed that if they stepped into the cauldron to undergo the tribulation, almost no one dared to guarantee that they would be able to pass it. And now, the sight of the lightning cauldron formed by the lightning tribulation cauldron made them even more shocked. Even when they looked at Situ Wu, the sect master of the myriad phenomenon sect, a trace of pity appeared in their eyes. Of all the people to provoke, why did he have to provoke Taoist North Ming? At this moment, even those who believed in Situ Wu dared not guarantee that he would be able to pass the tribulation. Chapter 800. The thunder tribulations turned into a cauldron, and the cauldron contains the true thunder essence. Without a doubt, the true thunder essence contains great creation and infinite mystery, and it can create a new life. However, at the same time, the power of this thunder tribulations is also unprecedentedly terrifying, surpassing all the previous tribulations combined. Situ Wu's face was unprecedentedly solemn. This tribulation transcendence was extremely sudden for him. If it was an ordinary person undergoing a tribulation transcendence, with his ultimate primordial soul realm strength, he would not be afraid at all. Even if the heavens and earth were to strike him, he would not be able to do anything. However, the person undergoing the tribulation transcendence was Ziyue, the most powerful person in the same realm since ancient times. The power of the thunder tribulations was also extraordinary, and it had the addition of the human lightning tribulations and the lightning cauldron hidden essence tribulation. Most importantly, he could not be sure if there would be more thunder tribulations after this one. In this life, Situ Wu thought that he had seen countless people, but he really could not understand Ziyue. Therefore, when many cultivators surrounded and attacked Ziyue, he did not act rashly. He was deeply afraid of Ziyue. In my current state, I definitely can't withstand the attack of the giant cauldron formed by the thunder tribulations. I will die in one blow. Situ Wu felt the power of the thunder tribulations in the void and knew clearly that even if he gave it his all, he would not be able to withstand it. In the end, he sighed helplessly, and with a stroke of his hands, a terrifying power erupted and quickly tore open the space barrier beside him. Then, his figure flashed and he rushed directly into the void turbulence. Self-exile. In order to avoid this tribulation transcendence, Situ Wu had actually self-exiled. Bai Ziyue looked at Situ Wu and his face involuntarily revealed a trace of a strange expression. He had to admit that this was indeed a method. It was a method that could only be used by powerhouses who were at the peak of the primordial soul realm and above. Self-exile did not mean that he would not be able to step into the astral realm in the future. As long as he was strong enough to tear open the void barrier of the astral realm, he could return from the void turbulence. However, the tribulation transcendence was the will of the astral realm, and it was a test for a powerhouse. When a cultivator began to transcend the tribulation, it would inexplicably lock onto the cultivator. For this reason, even if Ziyue's heavenly tribulation ended, when Situ Wu returned from the chaotic streams of space, the heavenly tribulation would immediately descend and slash at him. At that time, if his strength was not enough to withstand the might of the lightning cauldron, he would definitely die. Rumble. The thunder cauldron, which had been brewing for a long time, was completely formed. It turned into a stream of light and quickly fell, smashing towards Ziyue. The two lightning cauldrons, one large and one small, both contained majestic and terrifying power. Under the pressure, it was almost able to trample the void. Go! Ziyue's eyes were clear. As his thoughts flashed, a flying sword had already pierced out. The supreme Taoist technique, the heart sword technique. Qi. The sword light met one of the lightning cauldrons and stabbed it. Puff! The sharpness of Ziyue's flying sword, after the baptism of the previous thunder tribulation, had actually reached a level of transformation. When Ziyue used his full battle strength to display the supreme Taoist technique, the power of the heart sword technique reached an extreme level. Almost instantly, the lightning cauldron was pierced through and shattered. Then, the sword light hummed softly and a terrifying suction force was generated, like a giant dragon sucking in water. The rich and pure true thunder essence in the shattered lightning cauldron poured into the flying sword and was completely absorbed. The sword light trembled, as if it was incomparably excited. Endless spiritual light constantly bloomed, and the power of Tao laws was constantly imprinted in it. Thunder was born in the void, and the spirituality increased rapidly. Buzz, buzz, buzz. A sense of ease suddenly arose in Ziyue's heart. The flying sword had leveled up. From a gold core treasure, it had leveled up to a primordial spirit treasure. Moreover, Ziyue could clearly feel that in his dark north flying sword, the spiritual embryonic form that had been awakened, was growing rapidly at this moment and was constantly growing stronger. spiritual small success, great success, spiritual perfection. And then, with the influx of the last wisp of true thunder essence, it finally reached the extreme, completely leveled up, ignited the divine light, and possessed divinity. The magic treasure contains divinity. Is it not equivalent to this magic treasure, completely leveled up and turned into a spirit treasure? Ziwa was stunned, and then his face revealed endless joy. He had long expected that the true thunder essence in the lightning cauldron contained the purest true force of thunder tribulation in the world, and had endless opportunities and amazing effects. Under the instinctive devouring of the flying sword, he felt the spirituality in the dark north flying sword cheering. He had a premonition that once the true thunder essence was devoured, the spirituality of his life source flying sword would inevitably be greatly enhanced. But even he did not expect that under this surge of spirituality, the quality of his life source flying sword itself had not only reached the primordial spirit treasure level, but its spirituality had also grown and produced divinity. And a magic treasure that contained divinity could already be called a spirit treasure in the outside world. Although the grade had not reached the level of a treasure far beyond the primordial spirit level like the Kunwu Golden Pagoda, its essence had changed, and the speed of leveling up would be countless times faster than ordinary magic treasures. More importantly, his magic treasure would no longer have any bottlenecks in leveling up, and would not need other materials to enhance it. As long as there was enough energy, it could keep leveling up to a level comparable to the Kunwu Golden Pagoda, or even surpass it. This is really a pleasant surprise for me. Ziwa sighed in his heart, and then looked at the other lightning cauldron. This lightning cauldron was an attack that he had to face when he was going through the tribulation. Its momentum was majestic, as if it could suppress everything. Almost at the moment when Ziwa's flying sword was officially leveled up to a spirit treasure, it smashed into Ziwa's body. Boom! The giant cauldron collided with Ziwa's real dragon armor technique, and it was like two stars colliding, erupting with endless power, and then there was a bang. The lightning cauldron broke. It broke into dozens of pieces and shattered. Obviously, the attack of the lightning cauldron was still inferior to Ziwa's defensive means in terms of absolute power. Thinking about it, this heavenly tribulation was indeed extremely powerful, and its power was definitely the strongest heavenly tribulation that a golden core realm cultivator had ever faced. However, Ziwa's real combat power and defensive means had already reached the peak of the primordial spirit realm. It was naturally very easy for him to block a heavenly tribulation at the golden core realm. Even the primordial spirit attack that the attack contained dissipated under the effect of by Ziwa's 9 thunder god destroying seal and the soulless light that formed a soul defense technique. As the lightning cauldron broke, the endless true thunder marrow in the lightning cauldron also surged out rapidly. Ziwa hurriedly controlled his soul to rush out and use the heaven-devouring technique to rapidly absorb and convert the boundless true thunder marrow liquid. Zzz, in an instant, Ziwa's soul, which was almost filled to the brim with great soul golden threads, also seemed to undergo a shocking change with the influx of the great soul creation. It actually completely merged with his soul and turned into a pure golden color. A golden soul. The true force of the heavenly tribulation within it also quickly cleansed this golden soul with pure yang true force, completely cleansing it. Buzz! In an instant, his soul was completely transformed into a primordial spirit. It was different from the pure golden primordial spirit of an ordinary cultivator. Immediately after, the moment the golden primordial spirit was transformed, Ziwa hurriedly controlled the true thunder marrow and poured it into his body to refine his physical body. Traces of pure yang force of creation were poured into the particles of his physical body, and from this, his physical body underwent a deeper level of enhancement and transformation. 1 breath, 2 breaths, 3 breaths, gradually, Ziwa's physical body showed a kind of crystalline color, and as his flesh and blood grew and spat out energy, it was as if a bolt of purple lightning was about to burst out. Is this because my physical body has been enhanced to the extreme and evolved into a divine ability? Ziyue could feel the strength of his physical body, especially when his primordial spirit sensed that the lightning force of creation contained in the particles of his physical body could be summoned and turned into an attack at his command. He could not help but have some guesses in his heart. Buzz, buzz, buzz. At this moment, the dark clouds in the void suddenly dispersed, and above the 9 heavens, there were 2 huge golden lights, one big and one small, that penetrated through the clouds and directly fell on Ziyue and Jiang Taixian, who was under his protection and was also in the Kunwu Golden Pagoda. The great light shines, auspicious sign descends. The heavenly tribulation this time is finally over. Jiang Taixian was pleasantly surprised, and there was an extremely excited look in his eyes. He had thought that he would definitely die, but in the end, under Ziyue's protection, not only did he successfully survive the heavenly tribulation, but he also enjoyed the recognition and benefits of heaven and earth after the heavenly tribulation. The heavenly tribulation this time is finally over. There were 12 heavenly tribulations, and in the end, only Taoist priest North Ming managed to survive. Countless cultivators in the surroundings also exclaimed in surprise and looked at Ziyue, who was standing proudly in the void and also enjoying the benefits of heaven and earth. In their eyes, although Jiang Taishuan's talent and strength were not bad, he was at most a lucky guy who was valued and protected by Ziyue. Only Ziyue could truly be called a genius and was unparalleled in history. Previously, before he had reached the primordial spirit stage, he had the battle record of going against the odds and slaying an expert at the peak of the primordial spirit stage with his sword, and not being defeated by an attack from an expert of the supreme realm. Now that he had successfully survived the heavenly tribulation, his soul had been baptized and transformed, and he had officially stepped into the primordial spirit stage. His strength would definitely increase greatly and reach a higher level. Then, how strong would his combat ability be? Would he be on par with an expert of the supreme realm? Or would he surpass the supreme realm and reach an unimaginable level? Everyone was guessing, but they truly regarded Ziyue as one of the few most powerful people in the astral realm of this generation. He was comparable to the top 10 experts of the supreme realm. As for Situ Zheng, who'd obtained a great reputation because he'd openly overcome the heavenly tribulation before by Ziyue at this moment, he was truly like a starlight competing for brilliance with the bright moon. He was completely unremarkable, and he wasn't valued by others any longer. Because of this, the 1,000 Phenomenon Sects plan was completely destroyed. This wave of auspicious aura is too rich and too rich. It's countless times richer than the auspicious aura I received when I broke through to the golden core stage. The quantity is also countless times greater. Ziyue absorbed the auspicious aura descending from the 9 heavens with all his might. The auspicious aura contained endless creation. It was a kind of gift and reward from heaven and earth. It was an all-round help to a cultivator's improvement and improvement. Once a cultivator absorbed it, not only could they improve their cultivation level and compress and purify their power, but they could also derive Tao techniques and understand their own problems. Take Ziyue, for example. If not for the auspicious aura's assistance, even if he could condense an extreme violet golden core, he could at most achieve the same level as Situ Zheng. His golden core only contained a small amount of purple golden core. How could he achieve the perfect extreme violet golden core now? How could he achieve such a deep foundation and possess such extraordinary combat ability now? It's a pity that my soul and physical body have been improved to the extreme because I absorbed the true thunder marrow after the thunder cauldron was broken. Even my natal flying sword has been upgraded to an immortal soul treasure with the help of the true thunder marrow. It has also awakened its divinity and turned into a spiritual treasure. I don't need the auspicious aura to upgrade it at all. Ziyue sighed. Then, his eyes lit up. With a thought, a book that seemed to be made of metal and wood appeared in front of him. This book was the precious treasure that Ziyue had obtained after going through many dangers and hardships in the Divine Star Mountain. The Book of the Great Tao. Although the Book of the Great Tao had no rank and could not be used to recognize an owner, it could naturally be used by anyone. However, the amount of energy required to use the Book of the Great Tao was terrifying. Even when he used it, he had to be very careful. Otherwise, he would not be able to bear it. At this moment, when the auspicious aura descended from the sky, it was as if his heart was blessed, and he was finally able to take out this precious treasure once again. He planned to use the auspicious aura to officially deduce the cultivation technique that he needed to cultivate in the immortal soul realm. The cultivation technique of the immortal soul realm is the foundation of my future cultivation, the foundation of the Great Tao. I originally planned to pay a huge price to create the cultivation technique of the immortal soul realm when I successfully overcome the tribulation and step into the immortal soul realm. Now that the auspicious aura has descended, it's just right. Ziyue muttered to himself. He took out the Book of the Great Tao and guided the auspicious aura. At the same time, he glanced at his stats panel and directly activated the enlightenment period. In an instant, his thoughts changed drastically. Not only did his comprehension and memory improve, but his ability to grasp and use the various flashes of inspiration in his mind also reached an astonishing level. At this moment, his consciousness brushed lightly and landed on the Book of the Great Tao. 1. As their minds connected, Ziyue felt a special, tranquil, harmonious power that was like the Tao of nature and infinite perception of all things in the world appeared in his mind. At this moment, there seemed to be countless sounds of Tao descending. There were also tens of thousands of great Taos appearing before his eyes. The endless mysteries transformed into a beautiful scene. It was like a vast galaxy but also like the universe. Endless beautiful light bloomed, causing people to be incomparably intoxicated. Although it was not the first time that Ziyue had used the Book of the Great Tao, he was still shocked. He could feel the magnificent scene of tens of thousands of great Tao contained in it. Chapter 801. Without any hesitation, Ziyue channeled a large amount of auspicious aura into the Book of the Great Tao as he immersed himself in the auspicious aura. He used the auspicious aura as a driving force to drive the Book of the Great Tao. Almost instantly, the Book of the Great Tao shone with a brilliant light. Then, the sound of Tao fell. In the void, 3,000 great Tao laws appeared. Even if one only looked at it from afar, it was enough to move one's heart and allow one to have a better understanding of heaven and earth. The auspicious aura can't be maintained for long. Let's begin. Ziyue calculated the time and hurriedly began to use the Book of the Great Tao to deduce a cultivation technique. The cultivation technique of the primordial spirit was different from the cultivation techniques of the aperture enlightening realm, the God realm, and the golden core realm. It was a cultivation technique that was specifically used on the primordial spirit. Of course, Ziyue had the legacies of 3 spirit severing stage cultivators. His foundation was already extremely deep. What he saw was naturally very different from that of ordinary primordial spirit cultivators. The primordial spirit was the foundation of any primordial spirit cultivator. However, the physical body was also very important. The Great Tao was like a sea of bitterness. The primordial spirit was like the helm, and the physical body was like the boat crossing the sea. Without a physical body, even if the primordial spirit could exist for a long time, it would almost lose the possibility of exploring the Great Tao. It could only be like a lonely soul trapped in a place. In the end, it could not escape the scars of time and would gradually decay and be worn down. Perhaps only the spirit-severing stage cultivators above the primordial spirit could split their primordial spirit and use it to roam heaven and earth. Only then could they truly not be afraid of the physical body being damaged, but now, he was not a spirit-severing stage cultivator. Naturally, he would not abandon the use of the physical body. Therefore, when he started to create the cultivation technique, he also integrated the body tempering technique into it. First Yuan Great Tao Technique, Heaven-Devouring Divine Transformation Technique, Supreme Primordial Tao Technique under the effect of the Enlightenment time, coupled with his mind sinking into the Book of the Great Tao, Ziyue quickly created the various cultivation techniques that he had created. Then, using them as an extension, with the legacies of the three spirit-severing stage cultivators as the foundation and his golden primordial spirit as the foundation, he officially began to create the cultivation technique. Instantly, all kinds of wonderful ideas, all kinds of extremely complicated and perfect ideas, the mysteries of heaven and earth, the infinite good fortune, and the laws of the great Tao, all of them appeared in his mind. Then, as he organized and created them, they rapidly collided, derived, and formed Tao patterns that contained endless mysteries. The Tao patterns also began to fuse and collide with each other as he organized and created them. Bit by bit, a cultivation technique at the primordial spirit realm began to take shape. However, if he wanted to go from an embryonic form to a complete cultivation technique that was suitable for him, he would still need to go through a long process of being at a loss. Even though the Book of the Great Tao was incomparably wondrous and contained countless mysteries of the Great Tao, its foundation far surpassed Ziyue's own. In terms of breadth and depth, it even surpassed the legacies of the three spirit-severing stage cultivators. However, if he wanted to imprint these mysteries of the Great Tao into his mind in the form of a cultivation method, he would still need time. Not to mention, Ziyue wanted to create a perfect cultivation method that was not only suitable for himself, but also the best cultivation method in the world. Fortunately, Ziyue had many tricks up his sleeves. The time of enlightenment, the Book of the Great Tao, and the baptism of the auspicious aura made the process of creating his cultivation method much smoother than before. He was also very satisfied with the progress. It was very shocking. 1 breath, 2 breaths, 3 breaths. Time passed and Ziyue's cultivation method was also slowly perfected. Soon, he had deduced it to the peak of the initial primordial spirit realm, then the middle primordial spirit realm, the late primordial spirit realm. Of course, this was only a preliminary deduction and was not perfect. There was still a lot of trial and error in the process. Once it was not smooth in the later stages, he would have to start all over again. Creating a cultivation method was never done in a short period of time. Even if an expert at the pinnacle of the primordial spirit realm reorganized his cultivation method, it would still take years, decades, or even centuries. Fortunately, Ziyue had the time of enlightenment, the Book of the Great Tao, and the blessing of the auspicious aura, which saved him a lot of time. He could also verify the right and wrong of his cultivation method in an extremely short period of time, constantly deducing and discussing the Tao. The auspicious aura is about to end. Suddenly, Ziyue felt that his thoughts were slowing down. The smoothness, speed, and the continuous surge of inspiration from before were rapidly weakening. He immediately understood that the auspicious aura was about to end. It had only been 60 breaths from start to finish. Anxious, he did not hesitate at all and glanced at the attribute panel. The number of spirit energy on the attribute panel has actually reached more than 2 billion? Ziyue raised his eyebrows in surprise. Before the tribulation transcendence, the number of spirit energy he had was only slightly more than 100 million. He did not expect it to increase by so much in such a short period of time. However, when he thought about how he had killed more than 100 Golden Core Realm cultivators and nearly 7 to 8 Primordial Spirit Realm cultivators during the Tribulation Transcendence, especially when some of the Primordial Spirit Realm cultivators were very powerful, he felt that it was normal. The more spirit energy he had, the more confident Ziyue became. Consume 60 million spirit energy to rewind time to 60 seconds ago. Consume. Ziyue chose to consume without hesitation. In an instant, he felt his vision blur. The next moment, he sensed that the void had changed and there was an auspicious aura descending from the 9 heavens. It had returned to 60 seconds ago. Then, he no longer hesitated and once again immersed his mind into the book of the Great Tao. With the help of the auspicious aura, he quickly deduced. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 60 seconds passed in the blink of an eye. As expected, it's not that easy. Even if I have such a strong foundation and have perfect cultivation techniques of various levels in the same lineage, as well as the inheritance of the 3 Avatar Realm cultivators, it's not very easy to perfect the cultivation techniques and transform them into the most suitable and perfect cultivation techniques for myself. Ziyue sighed softly. He also felt that it was a little difficult and also a little heartache. After all, every time he used Time Rewind, he would need to consume a lot of spirit energy. However, he had always valued cultivation technique. Even if spirit energy was precious, it was ultimately a consumption item. Naturally, it was not as useful to him as cultivation technique. Not to mention, the auspicious aura descending was too rare. After this time, he did not know when he would have the opportunity to enjoy it again. Comparing the two, he naturally knew what to choose. Continue using Time Rewind. Ziyue growled. Then, 60 million spirit energy was consumed. In the blink of an eye, he once again appeared 60 seconds ago. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. The perfect level Primordial Spirit Realm cultivation technique is completed. A look of surprise suddenly appeared in his eyes. 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 20 seconds. The perfect level Primordial Spirit Realm cultivation technique is also completed. Ziyue was excited. He felt that all his previous efforts had not been in vain. Everything had blossomed at this moment and there was a result. 30 seconds, 40 seconds, 50 seconds, then, just as the 60th second was about to pass, a glimmer of light appeared in Ziyue's eyes. The perfect level Primordial Spirit Realm cultivation technique is also completed. The success of the perfect level Primordial Spirit Realm cultivation technique actually meant that Ziyue had officially created a cultivation technique at the Primordial Spirit Realm. However, at this moment, he hesitated for a moment and still used the power of Time Rewind again. Although the cultivation technique was completed, he always felt that there was a trace of unfinished meaning in his cultivation technique. It was as if it could be extended and changed again. Yes, it's the direction of physical cultivation. Among the cultivation techniques that I created previously, although they also have the ability to strengthen the physical body, they are similar to other Primordial Spirit Realm cultivation techniques. What is more important is the enhancement of the primordial spirit. The strength of the physical body and the evolution of the physical body are only secondary. There is nothing wrong with such a cultivation technique. It is also the cultivation direction and benchmark of countless cultivators in the entire astral realm. However, such a cultivation path may not be the correct one. It also may not be completely suitable for me. Due to the upgrade of the attribute panel, Ziyue's vision, understanding of the mysteries of heaven and earth, as well as his search for the Great Tao, and his exploration of his own path, were actually very deep. Vaguely, he could already sense the instinctive pursuit in the depths of his heart. He knew some of the mysteries of his life, and understood that the importance of the physical body was no less than that of the primordial spirit. Naturally, he would reflect on it and begin to organize and integrate it again. Therefore, Bai Ziyue reversed his cultivation method this time. Using the Tao of Yin and Yang, he placed equal emphasis on the cultivation of the physical body and the cultivation of the immortal spirit. He even borrowed the Tao of Tai Chi that he had comprehended in his previous life to make them perfect as one. They could complement each other and advance together. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 10 seconds, 20 seconds, 30 seconds. In the blink of an eye, 60 seconds passed. Ziyue's eyes moved and a look of satisfaction finally appeared on his face. A complete, perfect primordial spirit realm cultivation technique has finally been completed. This cultivation technique not only contains the way of the primordial spirit cultivation, but it also does not give up on the cultivation of the physical body. The two can be like the creation of Taiji, perfect and harmonious as they complement each other and advance together. Most importantly, in the later stages of this cultivation technique, the physical body and the primordial spirit can even directly fuse as one, thus deriving endless changes. In the advanced stages of cultivation, it is not impossible to be reborn from a drop of blood and become immortal and indestructible. Ziyue's eyes were clear and his face showed that he had the pearl of wisdom in his hands. He was not sure if the cultivation technique that he had created was the best in the world, or if there had been others who had done the same thing as him. However, he instinctively felt that this was the most suitable cultivation technique for him. It was also the most perfect and top-notch cultivation technique that he could create with his current strength and foundation. In that case, let's name this cultivation technique Grand Yuan Spirit Scripture. With the Golden Soul as the foundation of cultivation, it was naturally worthy of the word grand. Although the 4 words Primordial Spirit Scripture were ordinary, they concealed Ziyue's ambition in his heart. In particular, the word Scripture was a classic, meaning a classic. Anything that could be named with this word contained endless mysteries. It was the work and inheritance that a cultivator was most proud of in his life. Ziyue also believed that the Grand Yuan Spirit Scripture was indeed worthy of being called his proudest work, and even more worthy of being called a supreme inheritance. He believed that in terms of primordial spirit realm cultivation techniques, not only did it surpass countless other primordial spirit cultivation techniques, it even surpassed the legacies of the 3 spirit severing stages that he had obtained. It could truly be called the strongest. When Ziyue completely created this cultivation technique, the void trembled as if it was shocked by the birth of this cultivation technique. Imprints of the great Tao also appeared in the void and directly surged into Ziyue's heart. This was the sign of the acknowledgement of the heavens and the earth and the submission of all Tao. However, the great Tao was formless and silent. All of this was unknown to the outside world. Only a few primordial spirit realm cultivators could vaguely sense a slight change in the world, but they had no way of knowing the cause. This imprint of the great Tao, as for Ziyue, the moment he received this imprint of the great Tao, his calm and composed expression involuntarily revealed a slight change. This imprint of the great Tao is actually the only imprint of inheritance recognized by the world. In other words, this cultivation technique of mine is the only one in the world, and only I can cultivate it. If I want to pass it on, only by pointing out this imprint of inheritance can it be inscribed. Furthermore, only one person can receive the inheritance. Otherwise, even if I write down the complete cultivation technique, there is nothing in the world that can bear it. Regardless of whether it is a jade scroll, an inheritance stone tablet, or something that has existed for eternity, they will all be destroyed in an instant or erased by the world. Ziyue was astonished. It was only now that he truly understood the uniqueness of this cultivation technique that he had created. Ordinary cultivation techniques, no matter how strong they were, could not be passed on with such stringent requirements. However, This cultivation technique of his needed to be recognized by the imprint of inheritance bestowed by the world before it could be passed on. Furthermore, there was only one imprint. If he had already passed on this imprint of inheritance, then even he himself could not pass on the cultivation technique to another person. Furthermore, if he or his successor died, then this cultivation technique would be completely lost and disappear from the world, no longer existing. Perhaps, only in some legends and records would there be sporadic records of it. From another perspective, isn't this cultivation technique of mine the envy of the heavens? Even the heavens are wary of it, and that's why there are such restrictions? Ziyue thought to himself, but he did not care too much. At the very least, this further proved the strength of this cultivation technique that he had created. It should be known that the cultivation techniques that he had created previously, which had already taken shape, were similarly powerful and would definitely be able to shock the world once cultivated. However, they were not like this cultivation technique that would cause such a change in the world. In fact, this almost proved that the path that he had taken and the cultivation technique that he had cultivated were correct. As for the inheritance, he did not think that anyone would be able to receive his inheritance. After all, his experience was unique, and the cultivation techniques that he had cultivated along the way were all peerless and perfect. Without a golden soul and a perfect cultivation technique along the way, one would not be qualified to receive his inheritance. Not to mention, in his instincts, he actually hoped that his future successor would be able to create his own cultivation technique with his own strength, because only then would the world of cultivation techniques be able to bloom, flourish, and prosper for eternity. Chapter 802. As the auspicious signs disappeared, Ziyue's cultivation method was fully formed and engraved in his mind. He slowly opened his eyes and put away the Book of De Dao and the Kunwu Golden Pagoda. Then, he scanned his surroundings. The cultivators around him were not limited to low-level itinerant cultivators. Experts, sect elders, sect masters, and even nascent spirit cultivators were all looking at him in shock. Fan Qingyu, who had been waiting for a long time and had been worried, terrified, and agitated for him, also dashed out at this moment. She rushed towards Bai Ziyue without any hesitation. "Are you all right?" Fan Qingyu asked with concern. "I'm fine. My condition is better than ever." Feeling the fresh breath in his arms, Bai Ziyue smiled and said, "Now, there should be no one who can control your will." "Yes, but next time I hope to solve all problems on my own. I don't want you to take any more risks." Fan Qingyu raised her head and said resolutely. "With me here, there won't be a next time," Ziyue said with a smile. In the distance, countless people looked enviously at the two celestial companions. No one dared to say anything at this time. Not only did Zhuge Sheng and the others of the Myriad sect not dare to speak, but even Taoist Clear Spring, Taoist De Wang, and the others of the Celestial Spirit sect lowered their eyes and dared not speak. They dared not mention the enmity between Ziyue and the Celestial Spirit sect. When he was in the Golden Core realm, he could kill two peak nascent spirit cultivators in a row and withstand a blow from a supreme realm cultivator. Now that he had broken through to the nascent spirit realm, one could only imagine how powerful his battle strength would be. Perhaps only with the presence of their sect master would they feel a little more confident. As for Lu Wenshu of the Exalted Immortal sect, Lu Huang of the Celestial Spirit sect, and Cheng Sun of the Exalted Immortal sect, they had long since retreated. They were afraid that if they appeared in front of Bai Ziyue, he would remember their previous actions and seek revenge. "Master." Soon, Bai Ziyue arrived in front of Luo Hua Fairy under Fan Qingyu's lead. Fan Qingyu greeted her respectfully and then lowered her head shyly. "Greetings, Senior." Ziyue also opened his mouth and said with clear eyes, "The surprise you gave me is really too big." Luo Hua Fairy opened her mouth, her eyes filled with complicated emotions. Xiue's continuous performance really made her flabbergasted, and she also felt a wave of powerlessness and helplessness. As Fan Qingyu's master, she naturally hoped that her disciple would be able to find a Tao companion that she was satisfied with and had a bright future ahead of her. Previously, she had thought that Sidu Jing was a good match for her. But now, she had to admit that Xiue's performance had far surpassed Sidu Jing's. Whether it was talent, strength, or the way he handled things, he was incomparably brilliant. Most importantly, Fan Qingyu liked it. Since that was the case, she couldn't say anything more. Taoist clear spring greets fellow Taoist dark north. Taoist Dewang greets fellow Taoist dark north. At this moment, the two elders of the Celestial Spirit sect approached them awkwardly and greeted them carefully. Xiue's rise was inevitable, and no one could stop it. Now that Xiue was among the many disciples of the Celestial Spirit sect, they naturally had to greet him. Even if they couldn't rope him in, at least they couldn't offend him. As for the old enmity between Xiue and the Celestial Spirit sect, there was no old enmity between them. There was only new joy and joy. If Xiue could marry Fan Qingyu of the Celestial Spirit sect and become Tao companions in the future, it would definitely be a good story. "You're welcome." Bai Xiue nodded faintly, revealing a rare look of alienation. He had seen the attitude of the two Celestial Spirit sect cultivators before, so he naturally wouldn't be too close to them. Fan Qingyu, who was beside him, gently held Xiue's hand, a trace of emotion on her face. She naturally knew that Xiue's attitude was to stand up for her. At this moment, she only felt happy, and her spirit eyes revealed a strong affection that couldn't be dissolved. Yu Taoist Qin Quan and Immortal De Wang's expressions changed slightly, and they were about to lose their temper. As elders of the Celestial Spirit sect, how high was their status? How terrifying was their strength? No matter where they went, they would be treated with respect. The sect leader had personally received them and welcomed them with joy and courtesy. In the end, they had kindly greeted Xiue, but received such a cold reception. A surge of anger welled up in their hearts, and they were about to lose their temper. However, looking at the faint sarcasm on his face, and thinking of the monstrous battle intent and endless power that he had shown before, the anger in their hearts was immediately extinguished, as if it had been washed by endless cold water. Only a trace of resentment remained, and they didn't dare to lose their temper. "Taoist Beiming, how about we move? My sect leader has just sent a message saying that he's on the way. Why don't we move to the Celestial Spirit Palace in the Black Wind Market first?" At this moment, Fairy Luohua seemed to have received a message. Her expression changed slightly, and she suddenly looked solemnly at Xiue, opening her mouth to invite him. "Of course." Xiue nodded in surprise and then said with a smile, "I also want to ask about some personal matters with you." Fairy Luohua was the master of Fan Qingyu and Zhao Yue, and she had been taking care of them before. Naturally, he would give her some face. Moreover, he did have some questions that he needed to ask. In the reception hall of the Celestial Spirit Palace in the Black Wind Market. Even though it was just a newly built palace, as the residence of the Celestial Spirit sect, it was magnificent and the environment was beautiful. Above the meeting hall, there were words carved by experts who specialized in calligraphy and whose cultivation was at least at the gold core stage. Yi Hall. It was simple and grand, and there were Taoist principles faintly manifested, which looked quite extraordinary. Just these few words alone could be used as the foundation of a grade 3 or even grade 4 array formation. If a divine realm cultivator acted rashly here, he would immediately be suppressed by the power in the words, and he would be unable to move. Of course, this kind of handwriting naturally didn't affect Bai Xiue. Xiue, led by Fairy Luohua, Taoist Qin Quan, and other cultivators of the Celestial Spirit sect, stepped directly into the hall, and then he saw a middle-aged Taoist with bright eyes who had been waiting for a long time in the reception hall. Half of his hair was white and the other half was black. It was the sect leader of the Celestial Spirit sect, the Supreme Realm expert Zhou Gutong. Beside Zhou Gutong stood another person, who was the intermediate primordial soul stage expert of the Celestial Spirit sect, Mo Fan, whom Ziyue had met once and was scared away by him. Greetings, sect leader. Junior brother Mo Fan. Greetings, senior brother Zhou, junior brother Mo. Greetings, sect leader, elder Mo Fan. Fairy Luo Hua, Taoist Qin Quan, and Fan Qingyu were all members of the Celestial Spirit sect. When they saw the sect leader, they naturally had to bow. Seeing this, Ziyue's expression was calm. He had already fought with Situ Wu, who was also a Supreme Realm expert. When facing the sect leader of the Celestial Spirit sect, Zhou Gutong, he naturally did not have the same reverence as before. He only bowed and said, "Greetings, sect leader Zhou." As he spoke, he looked at Mo Fan and smiled. "Mo Fan, I trust you have been well since we last met." "Greetings, Taoist Bei Ming." Mo Fan's expression changed slightly. When he saw the sect leader beside him, he felt a little relieved. He only smiled awkwardly and bowed respectfully. The trip to the Dragon Palace had made him have a clear understanding of Ziyue's strength. Although the things that happened in the Black Wind Canyon were shocking, in his opinion, it was very normal. Even the spirit-severing stage extraterrestrial demon was beaten back by Ziyue. Even if the other party was already injured, it was enough to prove his strength. Compared to the shock that the other party had given him at the beginning, killing 2 cultivators at the peak of the primordial soul stage and resisting the attack of a Supreme Realm expert was not worth mentioning. Now that the other party's strength had improved and reached the primordial soul stage, his combat strength would definitely soar. In his opinion, the current Ziyue's combat strength had definitely reached the Supreme Realm and was comparable to the sect leader of the Celestial Spirit sect, Zhou Gutong. Naturally, he would be very respectful to him. Long ago, I heard some of the glory of Taoist Bei Ming from junior brother Mo Fan. It was just that I was limited by your cultivation level, so I still had some doubts. I didn't expect that the tribulation in the Black Wind Canyon this time would be an eye-opener for me. Only now did I realize that my vision was still too shallow. Taoist Bei Ming's strength is indeed earth-shattering and admirable. Zhou Gutong's bright eyes looked at Ziyue as he spoke. "Sect leader Zhou, you flatter me." Ziyue waved his hand and said humbly, "I'm not flattering you. Even Situ Wu was sent into the void turbulence by you. Now, he is still wandering outside the Star Realm and does not dare to return to the Star Realm. Although you borrowed the power of the heavenly tribulation, such a method is not something that anyone can do. After all, to some extent, the Supreme Realm experts have reached the limit of the Star Realm. Ordinary heavenly tribulations really can't do anything to cultivators like us." As he spoke, he sighed with emotion and looked at Bai Ziyue with a hint of fear in his eyes. He truly regarded Zhou Gutong as an existence at the same level as himself. "I think sect leader Zhou didn't invite me here just to flatter me, right?" Hearing this, Ziyue could only say with a smile, "Of course not. I would like to make a deal with you, fellow Taoist." Zhou Gutong shook his head and showed a serious expression. "A deal? I don't know what I have to make a deal with you, sect leader Zhou." Ziyue knew that Zhou Gutong was the sect leader of the Celestial Spirit sect. He was rich and powerful, and his influence was almost spread across the entire firmament territory. His strength was even more amazing. If he wanted to make a deal with him so seriously, it must be something extraordinary. Therefore, he was very cautious. "Of course there is. You showed off your talents in the Dragon Palace and gained a lot. Countless people are envious, especially the corpse of the real dragon at the spirit-severing realm and the inferior demonic saber used by the demon Dao expert. They are both earth-shattering treasures. What I want to exchange with you are these 2 treasures." Zhou Gutong looked serious and said, "Of course, in exchange, I won't let you down. This is the list of treasures in the Celestial Spirit sect. If you like it, you can exchange it. By the way, it also includes many cultivation methods and Taoist magic arts of the Celestial Spirit sect, such as the Celestial Spirit Divine Skill, the Golden Code of the Great Tao, the Great Sun Divine Saber." What? Sect Leader. The Celestial Spirit Divine Skill is the supreme inheritance of the Spirit-Severing Realm. It is the top inheritance left by the founder of the Celestial Spirit sect. Every person who cultivates the Celestial Spirit Divine Skill can become the sect leader of the Celestial Spirit sect. The Golden Code of the Great Tao is also one of the inheritances of the Spirit-Severing Realm. It was created by the founder of the Celestial Spirit sect 18,000 years ago. Only the disciples who have passed the test of the 81 spiritual stone steps of the Celestial Spirit sect are qualified to cultivate it. How can you take it out and give it to an outsider? Sect Leader, please reconsider. Taoist Clear Spring and Immortal Dewang were shocked and quickly tried to dissuade him. Are these inheritances so great? Do I need to cultivate them? Bai Ziyue glanced at the two of them and said calmly, "Supreme inheritance of the Spirit-Severing Realm? Did he lack it? In the Dragon Palace, he had obtained as many as 3 inheritances of the Spirit-Severing Realm. Which one was weaker than the Celestial Spirit Divine Skill and the Golden Code of the Great Tao of the Celestial Spirit sect? Not to mention that he had created his own cultivation method, the Grand Primordial Spirit Scripture. The Grand Primordial Spirit Scripture was envied by the heavens. It could only be cultivated by him and could not be passed down. Even if it was passed down in the future, it could only be passed down to one person. It could definitely be called the strongest cultivation method. Why would he need to spy on the inheritance of the Celestial Spirit sect? In fact, even the perfect primordial spirit realm cultivation method that Ziyue had created before was definitely not weaker than the Celestial Spirit Divine Skill. It might even be better. I have my own decision. There is no need for you to say anything. Zhou Gudong's face changed when he heard that. He reprimanded Taoist Clear Spring and the others, then looked at Ziyue and explained, "I know that you have amazing opportunities and your strength is even more shocking. You don't care much about the cultivation method of the Celestial Spirit sect. However, there are thousands of great Taos, and all paths lead to the same destination. With the help of the predecessors' methods, you can verify each other. Perhaps you will gain something new. My 2 junior brothers are straightforward and hot-tempered. I apologize to you on their behalf. I hope you can forgive them." "It's okay, I don't mind. Not to mention, I haven't decided whether to exchange or not." As Ziyue spoke, he looked at the list of treasures that Zhou Gutong had given him. Be it the corpse of the Spirit-Severing Stage True Dragon or the demonic saber, their value was extremely shocking. Among them, the demonic saber was equivalent to the numinous treasure used by immortal technique cultivators. Although it was much more laborious for cultivators to use it than for fiendish cultivators, it could definitely increase the strength of cultivators by a level. For example, if an extreme realm expert used a numinous treasure or a demonic saber, he might be able to unleash a terrifying power that was comparable to a spirit-severing stage attack. As for the corpse of the spirit-severing stage True Dragon, Ziyue felt that its value was even higher. This was because not only did it contain the essence and blood of the true dragon, but the true dragon's flesh, tendons, bones, and other materials of the dragon clan, the Tao law patterns on the other party's body that were almost condensed into substance were even more helpful to the cultivation comprehension of cultivators. They could actually improve the realm of immortal techniques of cultivators. This kind of value and significance was extraordinary. It was especially so for a large sect. Chapter 803. It could be said that the corpse of a spirit-severing stage true dragon was a treasure that could greatly increase the foundation of a sect and raise the overall strength of the sect's cultivators by an entire level. From a certain perspective, it was indeed more valuable than a spirit treasure. I think the Celestial Spirit sect will definitely have something that you will be satisfied with, Zhou Gutong said with a smile. Ziyue just looked at the list of treasures: spiritual pills, magic treasures, various rare materials, and many other rare treasures that even Ziyue had never heard of. All of them were amazing treasures for cultivation. There were various formation flags and formation discs, top primordial spirit treasures, supreme spiritual pills that could restore the primordial spirit power of a peak primordial spirit realm practitioner or increase his combat strength by several times, the inheritance of a top expert, the treasure map of a secret realm, and even the cultivation industry. There was a dazzling array of treasures. Furthermore, after each treasure, not only did Zhou Gutong specifically mark out their uses, he even displayed the price of the treasures. For example, there was a flying treasure called the Large Boat. Not only could it carry 10 people, but it could also withstand a strike from a master at the pinnacle of the primordial soul realm. When it flew at full speed, it was comparable to a supreme master. It was even priced at 70,000 top-grade spirit stones. There was also the supreme spiritual pill that could restore the primordial spirit power of a peak primordial spirit realm practitioner. The price was 100,000 top-grade spiritual stones. A treasure map of a cave residence called Taoist Qianxi was priced at 200,000 top-grade spiritual stones. Even though Ziyue was experienced and knowledgeable, he could not help but be shocked. He could not help but sigh. As one of the top 10 forces of the Celestial Spirit sect in the Star Boundary and one of the 2 cultivation holy lands in the Firmament territory, its foundation was indeed impressive. There were indeed many treasures that moved by Ziyue when he saw them. Suddenly, Ziyue's eyes lit up when he saw the introduction of some spiritual lands. 5 Peaks Mountain, a 5th-grade spiritual land with a height of 3,000 feet and an area of 800 miles. Located 3,000 miles north of the Celestial Spirit sect, it is rich in 4th-grade spiritual fruits, golden peach fruits. Danger level, high, guarded by a 6-tailed fox spirit, priced at 500,000 top-grade spirit stones. Strong Dazzling Mountain, a high-grade 5th-grade spiritual land with a height of 5,000 feet and a radius of 1,000 miles. Located 4,000 miles south of the Celestial Spirit sect, it is rich in silver spirit ores. Danger level, high. Currently, it is the dwelling of the golden subterranean beast, priced at 450,000 top-grade spirit stones. Pengyu Mountain, a mid-grade 5 spiritual land. The peak is 70,000 zhang high and occupies an area of 700 li. It is located at. Are these spiritual mountains and spiritual lands also the property of the Heavenly Spirit sect? Ziyue pointed at the spiritual lands and asked. He had always wanted to find a suitable place for his North Nether sect to settle down and establish his own sect. Although he had asked Fu Yunfan to start searching, there had been no news yet. Looking at the introduction of the Celestial Spirit sect, he could not help but be tempted. Moreover, the mid-grade and high-grade 5th-grade spiritual veins were indeed enough for his sect to use in a short period of time. However, he could not help but frown at the price. Although he was rich, if he wanted to buy a spiritual land, although it would not be to the extent of emptying his foundation, it would still hurt his muscles and bones, and he would feel a great shortage. The Celestial Spirit sect is one of the 2 holy lands in the Firmament territory. It occupies a vast area, and everything within a radius of 10,000 miles is under the influence of the Celestial Spirit sect. These spiritual veins are all within 10,000 miles of the Celestial Spirit sect, so they are naturally considered the property of the Celestial Spirit sect. If an ordinary force wants to occupy it, not only will they have to obtain the consent of the Celestial Spirit sect and pay a high price to buy it, but they will also have to open up the mountain and develop it themselves. For example, in the Five Peaks Mountain, there is a six-tailed spiritual monkey guarding it. The six-tailed spiritual monkey is a great demon at the late stage of the primordial spirit realm. It is also occupied by a group of monkeys, which is very difficult to deal with. Without a certain level of strength, it is impossible to drive them away and occupy them. If someone can afford to pay the price, the celestial spirit sect will naturally drive them away and clear the obstacles. For a certain period of time, we will protect them and ensure their safety, so that they will not be disturbed by external forces. If you like any mountain gate, I can give it to you for free, and I can guarantee that no cultivator or demon clan will dare to disturb it for 1,000 years. Zhou Gutong explained and then said with a smile. Speaking of which, I have a sect that does need a spiritual land for its mountain gate. As for giving it to you, you don't have to pay the price. Ziyue shook his head and then said, I have my own use for the corpse of the separated god realm true dragon, so I will not trade it. However, I can exchange this demonic treasure war saber with sect leader Zhou. As he spoke, he turned his hand, and a huge war saber that exuded a strong demonic chi appeared in his hand. What a strong demonic chi! This war saber has such a strong aura. Taoist Clear Spring and Fairy Luohua's expressions changed at the same time, and they looked at the war saber in Ziyue's hand in amazement. The aura and the strong demonic chi that seemed to be able to distort heaven and earth were too strong. It even caused the array in the entire meeting hall to vibrate slightly. The three words, Yi Hall, written by an expert even faintly emitted light, as if they were about to be triggered by the demonic chi. This war saber has a strong demonic chi and is indeed extraordinary. Although it is only an inferior grade demonic treasure, it has already reached the peak of the inferior grade. It is only a step away from becoming a middle grade demonic treasure. Only fellow Taoist has a complete and transparent soul and a powerful primordial spirit. Otherwise, ordinary cultivators, even those in the late-stage primordial spirit realm, would be invaded by the baleful aura within. They would lose their minds and become a puppet that only knows how to kill. Zhou Gutong looked at the demonic treasure war saber and his pupils shrank. Then, he said with a look of admiration, Inferior grade demonic treasure? Ziyue was stunned. He did not know that demonic treasures and spiritual treasures were also divided into grades. Spiritual treasures and demonic treasures are divided into inferior grade, middle grade, superior grade, and superior grade. It is also very easy to distinguish them. You just have to observe the strength of the divinity or demonic chi in the spiritual treasure. If the divinity is illusory, it is an inferior grade spiritual treasure. If the divinity is solid, like a burning fire in the wind, it is a middle grade spiritual treasure. If the divinity is solid, like a human form, it is a superior grade spiritual treasure. As for superior grade spiritual treasures, it is said that once the divinity is complete, it can evolve and cultivate on its own. Once there is a breakthrough, it can even jump out of the limits of the spiritual treasure and transcend. That is another level of change. The demonic treasure war saber in your hand is a treasure among the inferior grade demonic treasures. It is at the peak of the inferior grade. Even though demonic treasures are worth less than spiritual treasures of the same level to us immortal spell cultivators, the value of this war saber is still above that of ordinary inferior grade spiritual treasures. If it is calculated in terms of supreme grade spirit stones, it is about 1.2 million supreme grade spirit stones. Of course, due to the scarcity of spiritual treasures, once they appear in the world, they will often attract many experts to fight for them. Therefore, such treasures are mostly priceless. 1 million supreme grade spirit stones is just an estimated price. In fact, if it is a transaction, it is mostly done by bartering. There are very few cases of real transactions with spirit stones. By the way, the 9-dragon golden pagoda in your hand is unimaginably valuable. It is a superior grade spiritual treasure. Even in my celestial spirit sect, it is a great treasure that can keep the foundation of the sect intact for thousands of years. Fellow Taoist, your luck is truly admirable. Zhou Gutong didn't hide anything. He explained everything in detail and said, "That's right. In that case I understand." Ziyue nodded. Only then did he understand why the list of treasures given by Zhou Gutong to the Celestial Spirit sect would also indicate the price of each treasure. It turned out that there was a price comparison. As for the Kunwa Golden Pagoda, he had long known that its grade was extraordinary, far superior to the demonic treasure war saber in his hand. However, he did not expect it to be a superior grade spiritual treasure. This made him feel a burst of joy. In that case, I will use this demonic treasure war saber to trade with you. It is also worth mentioning that the owner of this war saber, the extraterrestrial demon, is not dead yet. There will be some trouble when the time comes. Ziyue seemed to have thought of something and hurriedly reminded him. You can rest assured about this. Not to mention that the extraterrestrial demon is still injured and has not recovered. Even if it is at its peak, it will not dare to set foot within 1,000 miles of the Celestial Spirit sect. You should know that the 9 Tunes Thousand Sand formation of Celestial Spirit sect is a 6th grade formation. Not to mention one extraterrestrial demon, even if there are 3 or 4 of them, it is enough to block it. If it dares to step within 100 miles of the Celestial Spirit sect, we are even confident that we can completely kill it and annihilate it. Zhou Gutong said with a face full of confidence. Ziyue nodded and believed in this point. The reason why the Celestial Spirit sect, the Nature sect, and many other superpowers were powerful was not only that there were many experts in their sects, but also that their foundations were incomparably deep. A 6th grade formation was enough to block a spirit-severing stage expert. Even if there was no such expert in the sect, it could often be used for a long time. Alright, then I will use this demonic treasure war saber to choose these few treasures. They are the 5 Peaks Mountain, an upper 5th grade spiritual land, 10 harmony flowers, 100 bottles of moonlight essence fluid, and the flying treasure of the gigantic boat. Ziyue pondered for a moment and said, The 5 Peaks Mountain, an upper 5th grade spiritual land, is priced at 500,000 supreme grade spirit stones. The moonlight essence fluid is priced at 1,000 supreme grade spirit stones per bottle, which is 100,000 supreme grade spirit stones. The gigantic boat is priced at 70,000 supreme grade spirit stones, which adds up to 970,000 supreme grade spirit stones. You can also choose treasures worth 230,000 supreme grade spirit stones. Zhou Gutong could not help but say, There is no need. I would like to make a request for the rest. I hope Sect Master Zhou can agree to it. Bai Ziyue shook his head and said with a solemn expression, What request? If I can do it, I will do my best. Zhou Gutong was equally solemn. He had already recognized Ziyue's strength and thought that he was on the same level as himself. He was a little happy that the other party had asked for help. If he could make the other party owe him a favor, it would be of great benefit to him and the Celestial Spirit sect. As for the old grudges? Friendship with an undefeatable realm powerhouse was probably insignificant. As the sect master, he was naturally broad-minded. I hope Sect Master Zhou can agree to send a group of array masters to help me set up the mountain protection array. In addition, I hope that if Fan Qingyu and Zhao Yu are willing, Sect Master Zhou can let them go. Ziyue pondered for a moment and said, Although he had already entrusted the matter of the mountain guarding grand formation to Master Calmheart, it would take too long to set up the formation with only one person. Now that there was a chance, he was naturally willing to invite the array masters in the Celestial Spirit sect to help. As long as the core part was not lost, there was no need to worry about whether there would be a backup plan in the array. Not to mention, His own attainments in array masters were not low. As for the matter of Fan Qingyu and Zhao Yu'er, he was actually just taking precautions. Looking at the situation now, it seemed that the grudge between him and the Celestial Spirit sect had been settled, but the future was still unknown. He naturally had to think more about it. Of course, all of this depended on Fan Qingyu and Zhao Yu'er's own wishes. As for Fan Qingyu, she expressed that she did not want to be separated from him, and Zhao Yu'er, who was his younger sister, was even more attached to him. From Fan Qingyu's words, he also knew that the other party was extremely concerned about him. Now she was cultivating in seclusion. It was said that she wanted to break through to the Golden Core realm as soon as possible and return to the ancient desolate region, hoping to bring him back. While his heart was comforted, he also had to make some considerations for her. The matter of array masters is simple. Coincidentally, apart from junior brother Mo Fan's strength, he's also a formation master. If you're interested, he's willing to lead more than 100 third-grade formation masters to the Five Peaks Mountain to set up a formation for you. All the expenses will be included in the 270,000 top-grade spirit stones. Zhou Gutong pondered for a moment and said, Ziyue couldn't help but look at true supremacy Mo Fan in surprise. Daoist Baiming, please take care of me in the future. True supremacy Mo Fan couldn't help but cup his fists and say awkwardly. True supremacy Mo Fan is too polite. I'll leave the matter of the mountain protection formation to you. Ziyue smiled and hurriedly said. As for Fan Qingyu and Zhao Yu'er immediately after, Zhou Gutong spoke, and then looked at Fan Qingyu. He also knew the relationship between the other party and Ziyue. He also knew that Zhao Yu'er, Fan Qingyu, and Ziyue were all cultivators from the ancient desolate region. The relationship between them must be extraordinary. He had the intention to refuse the other party's freedom to stay in the Celestial Spirit sect. After all, once they stayed in the Celestial Spirit sect, there would be a friendship between Ziyue and the Celestial Spirit sect. Not to mention, regardless of whether it was Fan Qingyu or Zhao Yu'er, they were both peerlessly talented individuals. They were exceptional geniuses that were 1 in 10,000. He naturally didn't want to let them go. But now that Ziyue deliberately mentioned it, he couldn't refuse. He could only say, they are all the disciples of Fairy Luohua. As for whether they stay or go, it's up to Fairy Luohua and their own wishes. I can't say it and be the bad guy. As long as they still recognize me as their master, they won't do anything to harm the Celestial Spirit sect in the future. I won't stop them. Fairy Luohua looked at Fan Qingyu and said with a little loneliness. She had cultivated for many years and had taken in countless disciples, but the ones she valued the most were Fan Qingyu and Zhao Yu'er. Now that she heard this, her mood was naturally complicated. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.